She walks it loud like a thunderstorm, debunking myths with style and form. True crime, conspiracies her game. Melissa Jade, remember her name. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Microphone fierce like a roaring lion, unveiling secrets people been hiding. True crime queen of the digital scene, Melissa's got you hooked on her screen. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. From murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. 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 She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame.
Hi, coming. StreamYard redid its thing, and I can't stop. Up there it is. Hi, everybody. And why isn't my Nightbot ever working? I don't know if I forget the commands, which one it is, but Nightbot. There it is. Okay, it is. It's the.
Oh, there we go. It's Bendy and Allie's. I know that.
That's why I constantly back and forth. But I did Genlu up here and it didn't work. That's why not this one. This one. And it confused me because it didn't go. And I'm like, it has to be one of the two. Thanks, Linda, for 3 months. Hello, everybody. We got Bendy up here with me and Shay, and Allie coming up shortly. And I'm so excited. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi, Shay.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. We were chit-chatting about the plea deal, which I see you guys talking about in the chat, the possibility of Stefan taking a plea deal, which it appears like it would include the murder charge. That's what we were trying to figure out before we started, but it's crazy. I don't know. It's crazy. It's just so similar to Bryan, so close to trial approaching, and then all of a sudden the talks of a plea deal in the mix.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Melissa, so we went and looked at articles first, right? And I was like, because the one article that I read, which is local, only talked about the CSAM and the abuse charges. Mm-hmm. So then I just went and pulled up the docket, but I pulled up the first degree capital murder charge. And I see that there's a hearing set for the same day at the same time. So I'm thinking, yes, I think that having the phone evidence come in was a huge blow to the defense's case. And I think that they know that they've got him dead to rights and there's no getting out of it. And I think at this point, the only thing that his attorneys can do is keep the death penalty off the table. That's it. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Which, and we've spoken about this a lot with Kohberger. but I don't know what the plea deal would be. Would it be life? Would it?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's going to be life, right? And
Life
so
without parole, true life, fixed life.
It is a good outcome. I'm not going to, because if you were going to trial, what would be the hopes? Well, for phase one, the hopes would be the conviction of guilty and at least life,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like you were saying, before we started, like being able to see and have access to the evidence, and then hopefully also to be able to educate ourselves with the process and warning signs. And that's always the same with Kohberger, like it's very different because I see a lot of people saying, well, what would be, even I spoke to my mom about it this past weekend, and she's like, why would anyone be upset about guilty, and I am trying to explain what the court process allows and provides, that you kind of just skip right over.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be, but at this, okay, so here's my thing. Like Melissa said, I was like, the bad thing about the not having the trial with Stephen Stearns, particularly the CSAM and the S abuse charges, is that the evidence, the testimony of the process of grooming isn't going to come out. And I really did think that might resonate with somebody. Somebody might hear some bit of testimony and realize, holy crap, I think this is going on in my home or in somebody else's home that they know. And it, could prevent even just one child from being abused in that manner. That would be worth it, right?
Yep.
But on the flip side of that, I now understand how they're going to present this evidence. So they're going to use a whiteboard to show the photographs. And then there are 5 videos that have sound. Okay. And we do know some of the things that were on those videos. Allie's talked about it a couple of times. And that means that there will be 16 jurors who will have to be subjected to that. They will see it. Yeah. And it's very different than law enforcement. It messes up law enforcement when they see things like this. But jurors are different. Any one of us could be called for jury duty. Would you want to see that? Yeah. It stays with you. When you see things like that, you don't get rid of it. You don't. So maybe in that way, they're spared as well. I don't know. All I know is what it is. We can say all the things, but it's not going to change anything. At the end of the day, Stephen Stearns, as a defendant, has the right to plead guilty.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. So did Kohberger. He had the right to plead guilty at any point in time.
Sure did.
I think there are 2 different reasons why they pled.
Yeah.
Like, I think the reason Stearns did it is far different than Kohberger, but yeah. But they ultimately have the right. Yeah.
Fingers crossed, because that's what we were chit-chatting about too. Is we're talking about, we kind of went around the world as far as true crime cases, because we even hit Delphi.
Yeah, we did.
But fingers crossed, Jen is next up on that list, in my opinion. I have.
We'll see what happens with her. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Just Because, for 36 months coming out of the bushes to say, hey, happy to be a member for 3 years, which is an incredible long time to support the channel. So thank you so much. And thank you, Samantha, for 8 months. So let me jump and do our missing child, and then we're going to go right into things because there's a lot to go over. So we have here Anthony M. Morentis. He has been missing since July 13th, 2025 from Clearwater, Florida. He is 16 years old. So if you or anyone you know has information on his whereabouts, please contact the Clearwater Police Department at 1-727-562-4242. There's just so many missing kids. Like it never ceases to amaze me. Like, because I kind of go and I rotate, kind of state by state, and there's so many new ones on the daily.
I know. It's sad.
It is.
Out of Florida too makes you. It's extra worrisome. Florida.
Yeah. Did
especially,
you see Brenda Vanner? Go ahead.
Oh, especially after what happened. I think it was a week ago where there was this huge trafficking bust.
Was there?
In Florida, yeah. California in Grady Judd.
It's happening all around us, and people don't realize, like, it's right underneath your nose at all times. That's why it's extremely important to become aware of this stuff, educate yourself. But it's terrifying. It really is.
It is. And the sad thing about it is this kind of stuff isn't actually new, right? But we have better ways now to get the information out, and yet it's still happening. And that's what's sad to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can anybody in this day and age just vanish? You know what I'm saying? And
it was different. There's a digital footprint with everything. Did you see that they're coming out with the new? First of all, they have the Balloon Boy documentary on Netflix. Not so much that that's true crime, so to speak, but like that was interesting. But they have, what's her name? And I apologize because I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but the Disney cruise employee. They're coming.
Yes.
That was a very interesting one to me. Do you know that one, Shay? It was the Disney cruise employee that vanished. And how do you vanish off of a cruise ship as an
There's
employee?
only so many places you can go on a freaking boat.
There's only
give a rat's fat kneecap how big it is.
I'm so curious to see that, because that's one of the ones I followed when I was younger. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder what new information we'll have.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing a photo too, like of like a long time ago, like someone claiming it was her, and it was like on a remote island or something like that.
What? Say that again?
Like there was a photo that came out that was apparently her on like a remote island or something.
I remember
like
that. Yep.
Oh,
I remember
Amy?
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the one. Hi, Neat Noodle. So I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah.
That's
a good one too. I'm gonna check that one out too.
That's so funny, Samantha. Okay, so since we last came on and when we discussed the Amazon, we've had the Media Coalition's hearing, which was yesterday, and Judge Hippler agreed to lift the gag order, which I don't know why I was a little bit surprised. I don't know. I just figured he was so close. He was just going to like, you know what, let's just wait the week, you know, but he lifted the gag order.
See, okay. I was surprised too. And I don't know why I was either, because I had totally forgotten that. First of all, I actually covered this. So I streamed the change of plea hearing. I literally heard Judge Hippler start to entertain removing, dropping the gag order, the non-dissemination order. And then the state and the defense objected to it. So I don't know why I was surprised yesterday. Who knows what goes on in my brain sometimes, like what makes me think things. I don't know. If I knew that, I think it would solve a lot of things for me personally, but I don't. So I totally forgot. And then I was like shocked when he did it.
He was it was obvious that he had no intentions on keeping the gag order in place. But after making the decision, all right, let's wait till sentencing. And since both parties no longer agreed, I just figured, I'm like, he's just going to wait the, week. But no, he didn't. He was like, it's lifted. And I'm like, oh, snap. Like, what were your thoughts, Shay? Were you surprised?
I was, but I think it was more, I didn't think that we would get anything from him right away, right?
Yeah, right.
I think it was, I understood that it was kind of, hold on. I think out of everything that came out, like his emphasis back on pointing out the appeal that Bryan could still have, like making note of that. I know that it had been discussed, but that was like something like he highlighted as well during that hearing that really kind of rang to me like, oh, what if something happens and this backs out? Like, is there a safety net to not release everything just yet to kind of prepare,
Right.
So maybe that kind of goes hand in hand, like with like my thoughts on that. Like I was just kind of like processing like what could happen and how fast could things get out.
Yep. And yes, poor Linda, the gag order is what law enforcement or the lawyers they're limited as far as their availability to speak about it, but the motions and things like that are sealed and they have to become unsealed.
Right. As long and also they have to go through, because the public is going to FOIA and by the public I mean all of us. Let's be real here. It's not just going to be the tubes this time. It's going to be mainstream media, all the things, right? They're going to FOIA this information, so it's the evidence as well. So that's going to take a bit of time to go through. And Shay is correct. He is being cautious because there's a difference between the right to appeal. Okay. Or let me just stop. Let me not even use that word. There's a difference between filing an appeal and filing a successful appeal. Okay. Bryan Kohberger can appeal, and one of the things that he can appeal is ineffective assistance of counsel. Let's just think about that for a minute, okay? Not only did Judge Hippler at the change of plea hearing ask Bryan Kohberger, and they ask every defendant at the end of everything, at the end of a trial or a plea, if they're satisfied with their counsel. That means something.
Yeah.
If you're not satisfied with your counsel, or you think or you're not even sure, maybe you feel like you're satisfied, but you're not sure if you want to go ahead and commit to saying yes, that would be the time to be like, I need to think about this. And you can stop it right there. But yeah, that's going to be a problem for him. And then we have what Ann Taylor did. So if you're claiming ineffective assistance of counsel, well, then you have to back that up. You can't just be like, well, she was ineffective and the end. No, you got to state what it is that she did that caused her to be ineffective. You have to cite examples, and the burden shifts. So during the appeals process, the burden would solely be on Kohberger. It's solely on the defense, and it's a high burden at that point. The thinking is that the trial judge, not you, Judge Bev. Nobody expected you to do any of this. We see you, Judge Bev. Okay. But the thinking is that the trial judge is the one who's supposed to be making sure that the defendant's rights are preserved, paying attention to making sure there's no errors and, all of the things. So that kind of stuff. C. Carter, he does he says he waives his right to an appeal, but in Idaho, the Idaho Supreme Court had ruled on a different case. It's I think it's Gonzalez versus Idaho, that you never truly really waive your right to an appeal. So just because you have the right to an appeal, Sarah Boone, you might want to pay attention to this. Just because you have the right to file an appeal does not mean that your appeal will be successful. It doesn't mean that your appeal has merit. It just means that you can. That's it. That's all. Doesn't really, Bryan Kohberger at this point really doesn't have a successful, appeal attempt, frankly. And that's it. That's all. Let me get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Katrina. And do you guys remember during the plea hearing when Judge Hippler asked Ann Taylor, did she have adequate time to go through the discovery? She went, yes, because the truth is that's what she's been arguing this whole time. And so I was curious if that was a natural reaction or if she did that intentionally.
It's hard to tell with her, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I think she was shocked he asked that.
That's a standard question to ask to the attorney during a plea hearing. So she knew that question was going to come.
Yeah. I don't know why she was shocked. It's kind of like me being shocked after I streamed the change of plea hearing. Judge Hippler was contemplating releasing the dropping the non-dissemination order, and then being shocked when this next hearing comes up, and then he actually does do away with the Why was I shocked? He was trying to do it at the change of plea, but yet here I was. But it's hard to tell with Ann,
It's hard to tell. It's like, is that a genuine reaction? Or did she intentionally do that to make it clear, hey, I've been arguing up until like last week that no, I haven't been able to. So I can't also turn around and say, well, yeah, I've had adequate time to go through it.
Right. It does make you wonder. She can talk now.
She can, but they said that they're not going to talk until after sentencing. Hi, Harlot.
You think she's going to talk, you guys? That's what I want to know.
do.
What do you guys think? You think she'll talk?
I do. What do you think, Shay?
I don't know. I really don't know.
How could, like, I think she's going to talk, but that's like, you're right, because like, what would she say?
All she could really talk about she cannot talk about the crime at all. She can't talk about anything that Kohberger would have told her. Obviously, all of that is now, should Kohberger no longer be alive, that does release an attorney from the attorney-client privilege situation.
Right.
But what could she talk about? Could she, she still has to work with the judge, or not really the judge, but well, yeah, the judge. She still has to work with the prosecution team. Like, what is she going to go on like Melissa's panel and just be like reading them for absolute filth? Listen to what they did. Let me just tell you. And you want to see receipts? Let me show you some receipts about how these people talk behind the scenes. Like, what is she going to, what can she really say?
Okay, I have two ideas of things she could talk about. So just for argument's sake. So one, I think, would be possibly of what she could talk a little bit in an overarching process of what kind of that IGG process looked like in the back door, like pushing legislation, change that. Second, I think, and actually Idaho Statesman actually just did a really great article on Anne, like just pumping her up. But sorry, I just thought that was really cool. But
she loves her Idaho Statesman.
I do. I know. I know. I'm weird. The second would be from these most recent interviews with Steve. He mentions some leaks that came from an office.
Yes.
And I think that's something that she could possibly point out and talk about as well.
Oh,
that's a great point. And thank you, Nini. Sidebar real quick. Nini says, do you think Jen D got immunity? I so hope not. And we were talking about this before I started too, and how she got what was it? Is it called temporary immunity or
derivative use?
Okay. And for that one interview, she did aside from that, we don't know. I don't think so.
I just don't see how she would be given any type of immunity past the derivative use immunity, because they don't need her. They don't need her testimony. They have Stefan dead to rights. They have him, and I'm talking about with the murder. They have him, on video. They have him, with her body when she is no longer alive. And also they have those phone calls. And I will not forget that phone call that we talked about over on Allie's channel, where Stefan Stearns says to his parents, I wish I would have run down the stairs and shook her awake. That's what he says.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't need her. They don't need her. They don't need her testimony. What I'm saying is they don't need her testimony to convict Stefan Stearns. They don't need her at all. This is not a Kayla Montgomery situation where, because they have Maddie's body, number one, where with Harmony, they didn't have her body. Kayla was the only witness to what happened in that vehicle. Do I think she told the absolute truth? No, I do not at all.
And that's when you would anticipate immunity to be offered, when you have information that's unique to you and that they really need, and it's dependent on a conviction. I can never well, and thank you, Jean. But no, I don't even know what a Burger King Whopper wrap is. And thank you, Alvin Summerwood, for a year. I don't know what's the Whopper wrap.
I don't know that one. The only one I know is the Big Mac, 2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. That's the only one I know. I don't know anything about Whopper. I don't know about the Whopper.
Hi, Angel D. So we have the gag order that's lifted, and since it's been lifted, we've had because I like going in, with a chronology, and the first thing that we saw, Shay had sent me last night, Ashley Banfield, who has her own podcast now, the Drop. What is it? The Drop. What is it called?
Drop. Ashley Banfield's? Is it Drop Dead Serious?
Yeah.
Drop Dead Seriously.
There it is. Because I was going to say Drop Dead Beautiful, but I knew that was wrong, so I stopped myself.
She is beautiful, though.
She is beautiful, but it was Drop Dead Seriously. And Steve had gone on, and
Yeah, he did.
The extended interview was on her podcast.
Yeah,
she
that's
shared
what
some
I
of it on
watched.
News Nation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I watched. I was like, oh. So she starts out the interview talking, and then she mentions, oh, it's on Drop Dead Serious. So I closed News Nation and went right on over to Ashley's channel and watched it over there. I sure did. They were also on
ABC.
I think it was CBS this morning.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. That's where I think he had. No, it was ABC. Is there CBS too?
So he was on the Today Show and he was on CBS Morning. I don't know if he went on ABC today, but that's the two I saw immediately that I sent you. I was like, oh, they're doing a press tour.
So wait, do they say the same things? 'Cause I didn't watch ABC the Today. No, it's not.
No,
It's
baby.
Good Morning America.
Oh, let me look.
So,
Momentito.
okay, so the interview that was on CBS didn't really get into some of the details like Steve did on Ashley Banfield's, but they did share a little bit of that on the Today Show.
Okay, so let me go because I know Ashley's is very it's 20 something minutes.
It's got a lot.
Yeah, and I don't mind going through it. So I just didn't watch the other one, so I wasn't sure if it's all the same information.
Okay,
It's
so there's
the same talk.
Yeah, there's two. There's one on Today, and the one on the Today Show was 7 minutes and 18 seconds. Then there is CBS Mornings, and that one is 10 minutes and 9 seconds. And the set is different. Steve and Christy's outfits are the same, but they're in different chairs. That's all. I mean, I don't know if it's because I got a little overwhelmed today. Too much rabbit holing, and I had to stop.
I watched them both.
Okay, good, Shay. Thank you for taking one.
Yeah, no problem. The only difference is Shannon is sitting with him, and so is Christy, and then they're talking about the same discussion where the family is wanting information, and Shannon, talks about how he reached out and tried to help them get that information instead of having to go to multiple police departments. So the same exact stuff is said on this interview with Ashley.
Okay, gotcha.
It's just more detailed here, and he doesn't have Shannon or Christy next to him.
Yeah,
Right.
I felt like just from because I did watch this one, and I felt like the one that you have pulled up right now, MJ, and I felt like he was more detailed in this interview than he was with CBS this morning.
Yes.
Which I would anticipate, honestly. But
Right.
just for context for everyone, if you guys remember during the plea hearing, when Prosecutor Thompson Santa had gotten up and he made it a point, and we had discussed it on that live we did, that he said that it was not a sexually motivated, there was no sexual component to this crime. And I remember because me and Shay discussed it, well, why do you think he went out of his way to say it? I thought, he was making it a point. I still think he was making a point, even when he was pointing out where their case maybe have lacked in regard to, yes, we can prove his car was driving around the area, but we can't prove that he entered into the house. Reasons of why they even went about this plea deal, because once it's in front of a jury, you never know which way it's going to go. And it's not a perfect, we could prove he walked in, we could prove he walked out, we have the eyewitness in. But I don't really know why. I thought maybe he just said it just to prevent the speculation. There was no sexual motive, or there was no sexual component.
Which left people a lot of shocked because of what came out in Dateline, where there had been some viewing of things that seemed like it was painting Bryan in a different light of his interest sexually.
Correct. And so something Steve's going to mention at the end of it, like, just that's where it's going to kind of come from, is that statement that Bill Thompson had made during the plea hearing. And so, but what I'll tell you is that it's still just heartbreaking to hear, because once again, it's just a reminder that these families do not know all of the information, similar to us. Like, they're very much on the outside, down to even the specific wounds and things like that, not knowing the full extent. And they're kind of having to sit here and go through the same process that anyone else would have to. And I'm going to have to request these records, and send in a bunch of FOIAs just to get the basic information about my child.
It is sad.
Mhm.
It is sad. I think where there's a disconnect is, okay, so when Bill Thompson is saying what he said, right, I think he made that a point because there's a difference between what they can prove and when they're talking about there was no evidence of
Physical evidence of
that. Okay, thank you,
Right.
Shay. I appreciate you and saying it, helping me, because I'd be buffering.
No,
So-
I knew where you were going. There's a difference in the profile of
Yep.
of what the
Correct. There's a difference in the evidence, the actual physical evidence, and interpreting what the evidence suggests. And so when they're talking about it, I think that's what Bill Thompson was trying to distinguish, to tell people that there was no SA. That is what he was trying to say.
Right.
That's very different than a motive. That's different.
Yeah, you're right. And I think he was trying to keep it black and white. But it's interesting to hear at least one of the family member's perspective on how they interpret it. And I do think there's going to be at one point where the mention of Bryan not needing to stand throughout the entire plea, that in real time, I was like, oh, okay, Judge Hippler's having him sit. But I didn't really look at it the way Steve is going to say in this interview, as far as like, make him stand and say out loud and admit to what he's done. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably a good point. I think I would probably upset if I was a family member and it's like, you're not even going to make him stand. Now, I don't think Judge Hippler did it in a disrespectful way, versus like, you could sit because it's going to be a few minutes, but I could understand being upset about that.
Right. I just wish that there could have been some type of compromise here. I know and I will never ever take away what the families feel, even though they don't all feel the same. That's their loved one. They're entitled to how they feel. And I'm never going to take away from that. I'm never going to argue it, and I'm never going to question it. They feel how they feel, each and every one of them.
Right.
I wish that there would have been a compromise here, because I do think that, although I believe Mr. Goncalves would have been upset that that it was going to be life without the possibility of parole versus the death penalty, I think that it would have taken some of the sting out of it if they required Bryan to testify.
Yes.
They didn't get an allocution, and like any kind of like questions of like where the weapon could be or things like that. It sounds like the families like weren't heard on some of that, so they felt like Bryan got the power back by not having to offer up any information that maybe the families want to hear, or there's things we just don't know, because to up until that point he had pled.
Right, exactly. Like so when Sarah Boone was she was offered a plea deal right during selection, but part of the deal was she had to admit what she did. She had to say what she did. She had to say that while yes, there was DV in their relationship, this was not the result of her defending herself. And she had to say what she did.
Right.
And they, I wish that they would have at least, what did they have to lose at that point by saying, all right, we'll take the death penalty off the table, but you need to stand up there and you need to tell us what you did and you need to tell us where the damn knife is. Right?
Yes,
They could have done that because what did they have to lose? They were going to go to trial any damn way.
Exactly. And that's what we've been speaking about is why didn't they just why? I don't understand. Like, okay, yeah, because when I look objectively, it probably is the best case scenario for him to take a plea and life in prison. Okay. But you absolutely could have incorporated, like Shay said, an allocution, something where you're standing up and tell us where the weapon is, or give us an admission of guilt, admission of soul guilt, and not saying to get into grave details, no, but like just, and like walk us through your admission and whether or not he's going to show remorse. I don't know, but I think he should have been forced to tell us where you put that knife.
Right. If nothing else, can you imagine, okay, if they required, that's it, that's all. They only required him to tell them the location of the murder weapon, right? And they go and locate that murder weapon exactly where he said it was going to be, okay? Right. I know that there would still be people that would be like, well, they might have beat it at whatever, right? There's always going to be the naysayers, but I feel like there would be significantly less naysayers if that had taken place.
100%.
Give me just 1 sec. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah. And thank you, Shelly Bean, for 17 months. I did take it. I don't know about you, Shay, but like it seemed way too rushed. And I know we spoke about this on the last live. Like it just seemed like it's not even about if you were going to move forward with that plea deal. Okay. But taking a moment to talk with the families, to get on the same page in the same way that, Steve and the Goncalves family said they wanted an allocution. Okay, well, he already took the plea. It's too late now. Yeah, that's why you don't rush. And this is something that you decide with, like, there was no reason to rush through it. It was very rushed. What would have taken one more week and just done it about it the right way? I don't know. Like, there's no reason. There's no reason for it.
Yeah. And I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were talking about how when they have tried, maybe a Josh Ritter, because I've just really become a fan since he's been on YouTube, but I think it was like whenever you have cases sometimes where in the prosecution you have split, families with split decisions on these types of matters. Like sometimes it's best to separate them and come to a compromise. And from what we know, it seems like that wasn't an attempt, and I think I think that just loses points and kind of frustrates people more,
Mm-hmm.
You could still maybe done the plea deal, but like, the things we were talking about, the allocution, where's the weapon, or because everybody grieves and processes things differently. Some say that they find a grievance process through the court system, others are like, I don't really want to know much. I just want to know that he said he did it and he's not getting out,
Yeah.
But I just think that it could have probably been handled different. But again, like it's been pointed out many times that the state is working for the people, not for the victims' families. And it's unfortunate because this is such a big case and there's a lot of media around it that it could inflame emotions. And I think some of the stuff we're about to go over and hear now, it really, disheartens me more thinking about these victim impact statements, because like one of the most one I actually even watched recently that still breaks my heart, remember, is Tristan Bailey's. Like, remember whenever they did the 114 pebbles for how many times? Yes.
Stabbed. Yeah.
And Fucci like stabbed her. And so they like knew the details of Tristan's death. And even though he, Aiden took that plea, they were still able to like make their victim impact statement however the families sought fit, but it sounds like they're not getting that information. Maybe not all family members do, but some need that, and not knowing that and thinking that they're going to find out everything probably the same time the public does, that just doesn't seem fair.
No, it doesn't seem fair at all. Oh, thank you, Nini. All right, so let's start to play this because there's a lot of information within it, and chronology speaking, it was the first thing that I think came out. Like, at least with us, it came out first, and then there's a couple other things that we have that we'll go over. So this was last night on Ashley Banfield's Drop Dead Serious podcast.
Gag order will be lifted, but the motions won't be unsealed. Not yet, anyway.
Whoops.
We requested for basically Kaylee, what happened to Kaylee. So I know her sisters want to do a victim statement and address the exacts, some of the things that happened to her. And they basically wouldn't share any information with us on, what happened to her. So I'm pretty used to how ridiculous, not just a gag order, but sealing something that has nothing to do with the victim's rights. It's all about, hate to say it, but it is a lot to do with the media and people being put on cameras and not knowing what to say, or things coming out that they didn't mean to say, or just didn't have a good explanation of what was going on. So they wrap this seal thing around trying to pretend like they're, trying to protect people and doing all that. But they gave out people's initials at the very beginning. So it's just a dog and pony show that we're supposed to pretend like, like there's top secret information inside these docs. It's pretty gross. And we're fed up with it, and we're glad that it's over. And we just, you only got one time to be able to be a victim's advocate and say what you need to say and to address, the courtroom and everyone in Idaho. And they're not gonna let us know exactly what happened. So it's just terrible. You're gonna go in there, we're gonna make statements, and we don't want to say anything inaccurate. We want to make sure everything we say is exactly truthful. And it's one of those times where they could bend the rules, but they don't.
See, that's really it's something that I feel like isn't being discussed enough, and that's how do you go about making a victim impact statement when you do not even know the exact details of what happened to your loved one?
Right.
I don't know. And this is the moment that, I feel for all the family members, all of them.
Yeah.
But to not know what happened to your child,
Ugh.
I think, I just don't know. I would go, I think it would make me crazy. I'm not going to lie. I really do. I know that Mr. Goncalves has received a lot of criticism online. Okay. But I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's right to give him that criticism. He is grieving, and grief is not linear.
Right.
Number one. Okay. And he doesn't know what happened to his child. That's
Right.
so hard for a parent. It's against the laws of nature in the first place for a parent to bury their child.
Right.
But then to have to bury your child, knowing that your child was murdered, and all you want to know, and there are some family members, and this is just generally speaking, but it does pertain to this case. There are some people who grieve, and the way that they get through their grief is that they need to know everything that happened. Then there are other people who grieve, and the way they need to grieve is they don't want to know the details. Their children were taken from them, and that's all they need to know. They don't want to know everything. But Steve does, and I do not understand why there should be somebody there. There are victims advocates that are the go-between between the state and the families. And I don't understand why there can't be a sit down with this man who and his family who lost their daughter and their sister. They want to know the details. Why can't they privately tell Mr. Goncalves, Mrs. Goncalves, the sisters, what happened? Why, if they want to know, why can't they do that for them? Why? I don't understand why they're unwilling to do it.
I
I
don't
don't.
understand it either.
So some of the like some of the new book of Vicky Ward's and James Patterson's that I've gotten to listen to, they throw a lot of shade at the Gonzalez family, and even like quoting stuff from, remember, former Chief Fry,
Right.
that like they didn't want to give them information because they could go out and, you know, tell everybody. But the reason why they're out there talking is because they want information, you know, about what happened, and
Right.
for someone to come forward. And I think just the way that, you know, they were kind of being portrayed in that book, it really just didn't feel right to me. But then if that really did come from Chief Fry and others and they felt that way, I can understand not wanting certain things to get out during an investigation. But at the end of the day, these are their children.
It's their
Like,
children. And you know what, though? Because in the very beginning, and I remember saying it all the way back in the beginning, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, Steve speaks outwardly, one, because it could be his personality a bit, but two, I feel like it's his way of controlling a situation that's out of control for him. And it's got to
Right.
be a big struggle. And it's that feeling of not, you know, like feeling like you didn't protect your daughter, even though it was completely out of, like, there was nothing he could do. But I could imagine and speculate that that's a big struggle. And so the only thing you could kind of control at this point is how this is handled, you know, and you're trying and you're fighting for your child. And so I can imagine his mind is go, 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 go. And you can't stop, because what's going to happen when you stop? You know, it's just going to all just settle, you know. But I don't agree with the way that this was gone about. Not so much that a plea deal was offered versus just how it was handled from day one. Hi, Allie.
right.
Hi.
And how the plea deal was handled wasn't specific to the Gonzalez family. It was to all
No,
the families.
all the families. Yep. I
like what Mother of Cycle Breaker says, because I think this is it right here. I think that the way that he has he's focused on these last almost 3 years, has the way he's handled it, the way he's channeled his anger, his frustration, his grief, is to going into this trial. Preparing yourself for a trial is when you are a victim's family member. I can't even imagine what that must be like, especially under these circumstances. And I think that Mother of Cycle Breakers nailed it right here. And now that rug has essentially just been ripped out from underneath him, and so he thought he was going to get answers at that trial, right? We all did. It's different for Mr. Gonzalez, though. We're not owed anything. He is. So at the end of the day, I just don't understand why they can't just, like I said, why can't they just sit down with him privately, his the family privately, and answer the questions that they want answered. There's no harming the integrity of the investigation at this point. He's, you know, it is, that ship has sailed. So let's, you know, maybe I understand that they might have been frustrated with, they didn't want anybody speaking because they didn't want to, you know, mess up the integrity of the investigation. I get that from that aspect, but I also can understand what the family is feeling. They just want answers. This is the time. Give them the answers. Just tell them what happened to their daughter. That's what they want to know.
Not be finding out along with the public.
No. He should not. None of them should be finding out things when we find things out.
Hi, Allie. Do you have service? You're here. I'm so excited.
Yay, Allie.
Yay.
She's muted, so she may not have service, but I just want to make sure to stop and say hi, and I'm sure she'll unmute. Yeah, Cicely. Okay, let's see.
And the gag order has been lifted.
I seem to recall there was some.
Sorry, I couldn't pause quick enough.
No, sorry. I don't know why I had an outburst right when I saw your little cursor go over the plaything. Like I could have held that in. It just popped into my brain and it came out of my mouth. Like, you know, the gag order has been lifted. Yes. So, bruh, let this man know. Let his family know.
They should sit down with them and just like you even have a mediator of some sort, you know, like, but just give them the information. They should not, because as far as we know, they're going to have to record request the same way anybody else would.
Yeah.
I think there's one thing of like understanding, like if the state or whomever doesn't want to like give the families information about like said the investigation looking into Bryan specifically, but I think when it comes to their children, how they passed and all of that, I think that is a really, I think that would be the most like kind thing to do in this aspect if you're not going to give them anything else. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
the least you could do. I don't know any better way to say it. The words aren't coming, but
There's no other way to say it. You're saying it just right, Shay. That is the least that they could do.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Jordan, for 26 months. The families deserve answers. They deserve answers much more than any of us do, you know? And I see the public, the same people who are outraged about not getting answers are outraged with Steve. And again, I understand that not everyone may agree with how he's handling it, but you don't have to, because I highly doubt any of us would want to be in his situation to find out how we think we would handle it. There's no right answer.
Right. We don't know.
No.
Look how some of us be handling stuff that happens on the YouTubes that ain't nearly as deep as this.
Right.
I've seen people ready to go full scorched earth, ending bloodlines for far less than this.
Yep.
Okay. We don't know. Let this man grieve how he's going to grieve, and let's give him grace. That's it. That's all.
Exactly. Agreed.
Okay. I'll be quiet now for real.
Okay.
Discussion that the judge was going to meet with families and tell you privately things that were going to be released in the gag order. Is that still a possibility, or is there no discussion of that?
There's no discussion of that. We just, Shannon just sent him an email and just said, are you really going to make my clients go through 3 different agencies to get this information that they want to see, like go through Freedom of Information Acts for the state of Idaho, for the county of Leyte, and then, you know, there's federal ones as well. There's even other states. So it's like they could make it happen, but clearly the willpower isn't there. I don't think they really want anyone talking to the media and questioning. You know, remember these people said that it was a crime of passion, it was targeted, and you know, it was isolated event, all this language. And then they even said, you're going to have to trust us. You're just going to have to wait and trust us. And now we've waited. Oh. And it's like, no. Well, there was no connection whatsoever that we could establish. So how do you get isolated? How do you get targeted? So I think it's more about covering up some of the mistakes that they made. They don't want to talk about destroying the crime scene and how questionable that was. So they just say, well, we're gagged. And now that the gag's over, you guys aren't going to know exactly what we were talking about during the last 2.5 years.
I can't.
And that's what makes me very frustrated. And that's how I saw it when the plea was first on the table is that you told them to wait. That's why I didn't like the way that this was gone about. You told them a plea would not be offered, which I guess technically still is true, but that's just, come on, that's like semantics here. But you told them to be quiet, and Steve was outspoken, but he did quiet down, okay? And these families waited, and you guys did say to trust them, and now here we are, and this was all done in the matter of a weekend. And now look, they are going into victim impact statements. Not even all of them can necessarily be there. And they don't even have all of the information. You're going in and, hey, give a victim impact statement on what happened to your child and how this impacted you without even all the information.
Right. Oh. Right. It breaks my heart for him. It does. It does. You know, I mean, and I don't think that the other family members should be, I don't think that they should be criticized for the way they're handling it either. I think, he's the one that's speaking out about it. And that's why I'm talking about what he's saying, because he's the one that's talking. And my heart breaks for all of them. And I think that Mr. Gonzalez had an idea of what he was going to learn during the trial. And I think that that shaped what he was going to say in his victim. I think he had a very clear idea about what he wanted to say to Bryan, even though a lot of times they don't let you actually literally address the defendant. Most of the time they make you, they have the victims actually address the court, but still that is as close as he was ever going to get to being able to, I think he had a very clear idea of what he wanted to say in that moment. And I think he thought that he would have those answers at this point. And he doesn't. And they promised him, they said, just be patient, trust us. I'd be mad too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'd also just throw in there too, just, flashback like a week or so ago, like the family wasn't gonna go to the victim impact statements. Now they're making plans to. So they've kind of overcome this hurdle of emotion of like, we need to be there for Kaylee, and they're just kind of getting stopped. And I could see this for all families. Like, I think, he's gonna mention the, Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner. It sounds like she was the one who also told the Chapin family, from what I've read from that book, like how they found out about Ethan's stuff. So it's like everyone is finding out from like different people, but like they haven't really, it sounds like they've gotten all the information full circle into like what specifically took place in that event of those last minutes for their child fully,
Yeah. And I imagined, like, and I know I use it as an example often, but because it was a very intense victim impact statements for Gary Ridgway. And that's kind of how I imagine it. And even though, yes, it's not supposed to be directed to the defendant versus the court, like it's very intense. It's all victim impact statements are very intense. But I always had like a Gary Ridgway scenario in my mind.
See, I was thinking more like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, it's
Jeffrey.
Similar. Yeah,
but the thing about it is, and this is what I know, this, and probably most of your audience does, but I always like to say this: the trial, which is so messed up, the very beginning of a trial, right, in the opening statements, that's when they talk about the victims. But the trial, by and large, is really about the defendant. It's about what the defendant did. And we don't really get to hear about who these people were, who these victims were, until victim impact statements. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just makes me sad.
For sure. And like I don't know. One of the ones like I remember really greatly, and I watched a lot of them, was remember Larry Nassar's impact statements with all the Olympic gymnast, talking to them about what he did to them. And I remember Allie's being like one of the biggest ones that just like broke my heart. But for these victims themselves to talk to their, predator, like it was just, oh my God. And this is the different aspect where these lives are lost and the only voice that's left is their families.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just because it's something that, with all the whole Plea deal and everything and the Amazon, series and James Patterson book, like I didn't really take time to think about, oh, wow, they really don't even know the information, and how, even if you get to the point where you accept, there's going to be sentencing, I have the option to make the victim impact statement, which I'm sure that they've been playing in their mind over and over and over and over and over again for years. And this is not the way that it was supposed to go. But my God, they haven't sat down with them yet and even given them the details. The gag order is lifted. What is the issue? Why can't they know what the hell happened to their children if they want to know?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It's sad.
It's so sad.
Can't imagine the frustration that you and Christy and the kids and everybody else who's been directly affected as victims of Bryan Kohberger's hideous, horrific actions. I can't imagine what it's like. I do know that the prosecutor sent you an email leading up to the decision to offer this plea deal. Now that the gag order is lifted, are you able to share what was in that email?
Yeah. Yeah, we kept it, but yeah, we could forward it to you guys, and then you guys could share it to your audience. It is what it is, man. You got to put yourself in the position of a parent, read that email, and wonder if that's what you thought was going to happen, and that kind of language doesn't really sound like it's a negotiation. It basically just tells us that it's over, it's done with, and just get on board. Get on board.
No solicitation for your thoughts, your opinions, to weigh in on the possibility of a plea agreement being offered?
No, it was just basically paperwork. We were asked if we had ever been offered a plea deal or gave one. We said no. He was like, Judge Hippler said, well, you probably should at least, look into that. And what's that look like for you guys? And we said, we're not in it. We're in it for the death penalty. The choice is he could be fired at, or he could take a shot. Those are the two options that we would agree to. And then we did, we would have, if it would have got to negotiations, we would have negotiated a lot better than Thompson. Thompson negotiated like a 5-year-old kid. He didn't force him to say that he did it solo by himself. Didn't force him to prove that he was wearing the suit or show us where the sheath, the knife is to the sheath. There's a right way to do things, and then there's just, I want it over with because I want my summer back and I want to go retire.
What negotiations happened? In reality, think about it. Anne would have gone to them asking for a plea deal on that Friday. What negotiate? Because you didn't ask for anything. Like, that's what it seems like. You asked for nothing. Okay, yeah, take that penalty off. You plead life. What happened there? You didn't ask. They absolutely, I wholeheartedly believe that they could have gotten something out of him.
They could have look.
Yes.
At the end of the day, they could have asked.
Yes.
At that point, in the late stages, where we were at that point, about 6 weeks out from the trial. Okay, what did the state have to lose? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
And it's so unfortunate because it really sheds light on how it was approached to them in a way where it didn't even seem like it was a possibility versus a formality. We should really get something in place here. What would you guys think? So, okay, if they knew it was actually something that was being considered, because again, you have to remember they were promised no plea deal. We have enough to hang him 10 times over. And so, this is what makes me mad about how rushed it was. Anne approaches on Friday. It's on the docket by Monday. The family didn't even have a chance to get there on that Wednesday for the hearing. And why not, even if you were planning on following through with the plea deal, why not just take the week, figure it out, get the ducks in a row, make sure the families are on the same page? I just don't understand. This is what I mean. I do not like the way it was gone about.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Moonchild, saving the cost of the trial. I do understand that, but
right.
But I get it. But at the same time, it wouldn't have hurt to ask at this. You know what I'm saying? Because if Bryan Kohberger wanted that plea, if he really wanted the death penalty off the table, they can do it. They can work it into a plea agreement that the defendant testifies. They do it all the time. It happens all the time. Now, at this point, right, they cannot make him the state cannot force him to say anything. But prior to the plea deal, they could have worked that into it. They could have.
100%. 100%. Stand up there and tell us where the knife is. Where did you leave the murder weapon? That's a go-to number one thing. Or, give us not a detailed, but give us an account of what happened. What did you do? That is part of it, as having to admit the guilt to it. And
right.
it was the same form that basic questions outlined. And it was Judge, I'm not sorry, I don't know why I keep saying Judge, Bill Thompson, prosecutor Bill Thompson, who, we didn't find, I was hoping we would find out a little bit more detail, even when he got up to speak, and we didn't. We really
No.
it's just on my mind is blown by it.
Part of me kind of wonders, is there a strategy for the defense for him not to talk about it? Because if he does do an appeal for ineffective counsel and he doesn't give him any type of this information, it it favors him.
Say that one more time, Shay, babe. I missed that.
Is there a defense strategy that perhaps if Bryan Kohberger decides to appeal this and he's not given any of this information, it favors him by not doing so? Like, it's all
I
kind of
see
worked
what
in
you
the
mean.
defense's like
I see what you mean. If he
favor.
says nothing, he can't be held
Yeah.
responsible. But if his appeal is based on ineffective assistance of counsel, whether he's
I don't know. I'm just trying to like see it.
I'm
from,
trying
like,
to figure it out too, but I get where you're going, babe. Let me think on that.
It's
me
kind
think
of
about
weird.
that. I know what you mean. I get where you're going, but yeah, it does seem like and I think there are a lot of people that wonder if there isn't something behind this. Okay, so I do want to say this because they're going to talk about this, not in this interview. They might say something. I know for a fact that Ashley Banfield mentions it on the News Nation one. She specifically addresses this no appeal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In the state of Idaho, yes, Kohberger has quote unquote waived his right to an appeal. But there is an Idaho Supreme Court decision that basically says even if you never truly waive your right to appeal, there is a difference between having the right to appeal, right, using that right, and being successful with that right. What Bryan Kohberger can appeal on is very, very limited. It's very different than if he had gone all the way to trial, okay, been convicted and given the death penalty. When you get the death penalty, your appeals are automatic. Okay.
Right.
When you are convicted and you're given life without the possibility of parole, you have to file a notice of appeal. You have to tell them that you're appealing.
Yeah, there's
the
death
penalty. Yeah, sorry, Melissa. We keep talking. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Like, so there still is that option, just not in the way that you would think it.
I think there other, like, the tinfoil hat side of me is, does the defense have something on the prosecution? And Steve's interview with this that we get further in kind of makes me wonder, like, were some of those leaks coming from the prosecution office? Like, like, take this off because we know you guys are leaking this. We're not going to give you that. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
I get where you're saying, but Ann Taylor is a savvy attorney, okay? And she understands how the appellate system works, how the appellate process works. It is an incredibly high burden. There are cases out there of actual innocence. We're not talking about like a little technicality or anything like that. These people have an actual innocence claim, and yet they haven't met the burden. They can have DNA testing done, and the DNA testing shows that none of the DNA is connected to them in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't guarantee that they'll be successful. Look at Brendan Dassey, and I'm not talking about his guilt or innocence here. Only this one little part. Brendan Dassey's attorney allowed him to speak with the prosecutor without him being present. That is an absolute automatic best example of ineffective assistance of counsel claim if I've ever heard one in my entire life. Dan Stidham, who represented Jesse Miss Kelly Jr., and it doesn't matter whether you think the West Memphis are guilty or not either, because by Arkansas State's own rules, Dan Stidham was not qualified to represent Jesse Miss Kelly Jr. in that trial, and he still was unsuccessful in his ineffective assistance of counsel claim.
That's crazy.
Burden is high, y'all. High.
And Brendan Dassey is always one of those that I'll never get over.
Right. and Lil Misfit's right. Ann Taylor she advocated, just because she wasn't, like, the judge didn't rule in her favor doesn't mean that's not ineffective assistance of counsel.
But technically, she got what she wanted, the death penalty off the table. Like, that's what they were fighting for the most.
Pretty
That
much.
is what she was
Pretty
fighting
much.
for the most. And that's what makes him like, did you negotiate at all, Thompson? Did you? Because it doesn't seem like that. There wasn't even enough time. She came to them on that Friday evening, and they were already to the families. And then Monday was on the docket. Like, we heard about it Sunday. You didn't even try. And I'm trying to understand why not. Because I don't want to believe you were just scurry, hurry, I want to retire. But also, Bill Thompson has a history of offering a lot of plea deals. But
this time he didn't. That he had, this is like...
That's what's bizarre to me. I was trying to figure out, not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, whatever people say. Like, I'm just trying to see all options in this. It's just odd.
This is like that moment in Rocky. Okay, Rocky 4 even, when he fought, what's his face, Drago. If he dies, right? Okay, Drago completely annihilates his friend, right? Then Rocky fights him, and it looks like Drago's gonna win, right? And then all of a sudden the tides turn. Rocky's got him on the ropes. He ain't ready. All the things, right? This was that moment, Bill Thompson. This was your Rocky moment, bro, and you blew it.
And he blew it. And even still blowing it, they have to go in to this ridiculous sentencing for this plea deal, which, again, objectively speaking, I'm not against the plea deal. I think it's probably the smart decision. Right. I just don't like the way it was gone about, I don't like the way it was gone about. Exactly. But they don't have the information.
The conditions.
Exactly. Right. And I know that people are like, I've seen it in other chats talk about like the Watts case and how, but this is not that. Okay. In the scheme of things, timeline wise, the Watts case was a long way from trial.
Yeah.
Okay. This was 6 weeks. 6 weeks. They were, it's very different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And dexterity. We'll get into that because there is other sexual gratification, other than
correct.
It's going to come up and we'll talk about it.
Yes. And I can't wait to, because I can't wait to talk to you about this. Yeah. I've been dying to speak to you for like a long time, but you're over here. I'm too busy.
I'm just happy you're here. It's a lot. I feel like it's a curveball none of us really saw coming. We really did not see this coming.
No, when Stearns today, we didn't see that coming. No. But I want to say, you guys, with Stearns, okay, yes, there's a hearing. Yes, I will cover it. It ain't over until the judge signs off on it, okay? Mm-hmm. The judge has to accept the plea deal. Okay, so and Stearns has all the way up to all the way to the day of the hearing. He can change his mind. So just so you guys know, it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, Scarlett, I'm still stuck on
me too.
Case theory that she had a couple of months ago when we were going over it after we found out in the motion in limine about this cleaner. That only it was not available for just anyone to buy, but it would have been cleaner that he would have had access to as a criminology student. And Shay had speculated possibly because he wouldn't have even had the ID that you would need to get access to those cleaning products and stuff. And so was it possibly higher up, whether it's teachers or other students who had that level of access to get the products? I really like that theory.
I don't know. It's interesting. And remember, his dad, worked as a janitor too. So there could be things that he, I don't know, could get. Maybe, I don't know. That's weird.
It's there's so many little pieces that we have no idea.
And we might not. Even if we had a trial, let's be real, we're still going to have questions. There always is questions.
100%.
And I'm talking about questions about what happened, not questions about guilt or innocence. That's very different. But some of the details, like look at Letitia. That every so often I'll be doing the most mundane thing, and I'll start thinking about that friggin' candle every time. I still wonder
Every time
about
the
that.
candle incident, that'll haunt me forever.
Yes, I want to know. And you know what? The fact of the matter is, even if we talked, even if Letitia just all of a sudden just said, you know what, YOLO, I'm spilling the tea, and she said it, I probably would be side-eyeing her ass anyways, because she's a lying liar face who tells lies, who lives in Liarsville. You know,
never believe her, even if she came out and said the truth. We would never be able to differentiate it from that in her lies.
No, absolutely. Okay, let's get to it, because Mrs. Pinkmas is making Mrs. Pinkmas. I don't know when we're going to get to it, babe. This would be my suggestion. Put some earbuds in and listen while you be making the dinner.
Mm-hmm. And today, Scott, he didn't take it that now there's articles being published about the talks of a plea deal for all three matters. So,
and there's a hearing Monday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 12:30 Central. And I'm sorry, Mountain and Pacific, you guys are on your own. I can't do that math. I've never lived there. Well, I did. I lived in Arizona for a long time when I was little, but that's been a long time ago. So I don't remember all that.
And this is Bendy's channel for anyone who doesn't know. I know someone asked, Sandra, you had asked. And so this is her channel, and this is where she'll be on. Earbuds in and making dinner.
I do it all the time. I listen to Melissa. I've been listening to Melissa while I made dinner since way back in Brian Laundrie.
Petito, yeah. That was long. That was my first active current case I covered.
Yep. Feels
like forever ago.
It does feel like forever ago, but it really wasn't even all that long ago.
It wasn't, yeah.
It's kind of scary.
I know. Yeah, FOS. Well, and with James Patterson, there's a portion of the book again that talks about the dream, and people are running. And I even saw Sweetie Pilo had jumped the gun and made a post. It's confirmed, Brian met Maddie. What'd she say? Brian met Maddie and asked, and no, it was part of the dream. It was a dream sequence. I don't know why people don't fully read, but hi, Allie.
Hi. There she is. Yay.
Here.
Oh my God. Let me tell you, because so I was coming over, right? And I was going to sit in my car and have the phone on charge because the power's out, which but then I dropped my phone in a puddle on the way to the car. I wasn't getting signal. That wouldn't charge because it had water in the port. So my dad, though, now has the internet on his generator. My phone's charging, and I'm in the house over here, so I'm good. And I'm here, and I'm excited.
Yay!
But
only you, Allie. Bless your little heart. You have more accidents with your damn phone in and around water than anybody that I know.
I was just thinking that. I was like, only Allie.
I'm just happy to be here because I've missed all you guys so much. And I've been listening while I've been going through, doing all this. I've still had my earbud in listening to you guys talk. I didn't check because I've been trying to figure it out. But yeah. So.
Yay.
Do you have
I do want to get that book.
Yeah. Do you have anything to share, Allie, before we continue?
No, I'll just wait and then comment as we go. I mean, I agree with so much of what you guys said, though. And yeah, I just hate the way I feel like no matter what Steve does at this point, there's people that are going to criticize it. It's unfair because I don't know. I just think it's unfair. But yeah, and I'm curious what you guys were talking about the victim impact statements. I'm really curious what that's going to look like. And I pretty much agree with you guys with everything. But
yeah, it's heartbreaking. All right. Let's see.
So that's what we got. We got a pitiful effort from an old man who's retiring and doesn't believe in the death penalty and really had no right to even be in that room. And it's a shame that we didn't have any other choices that we could have pushed for. We tried. I mean, I tried to even hire a prosecutor. I would have paid to have my daughter in a separate case with her own prosecutor that we paid for, and not even made Idaho pay one penny. And it would have turned out differently.
Which leads me to another question. There are still civil avenues open to you, a wrongful death suit against Bryan Kohberger. Do you and your attorney, Shannon Gray, plan to mount any kind of action after this, or are you done?
I think a lot of their strategy for this sealing and gagging was because they were afraid of the civil actions. But those are mostly have to be brought up within 2 years. And it's hard to bring something up that you're not been able to even look at. Like, we don't even know who made the decision and what was all done. So I think this was a strategy for them to cover up their tails and the university's ass. And there's two huge universities there. One, they literally sent the students back, saying it was an isolated, targeted event, and literally the murderer was hired by one of the universities and was literally in a position of power, who had already harassed girls, and they hadn't even taken those investigations seriously. So yeah, there was a lot. People need to look back when he was fired. He was fired on the 19th. That's the exact same day that the police said that the FBI told them that Bryan was a suspect. It's kind of more than suspicious that, WSU fired him that exact same day while he was out on the, back in Pennsylvania. They fired him. So obviously they heard about what was going on, and it was cover their tails. And that's why.
Do you guys think that that's the case? Because it's a good point.
I think that it's possible, but I don't think that it necessarily means anything. I think for Steve, I don't know, I hope he doesn't fall down too many conspiracies. You know what I mean? Because how could you not? You don't know the full truth. You don't actually know everything. And the internet is full of them. It would be really easy to fall into that. I don't know.
Well, and people do this. Me and Shay covered this back with Rat and Norton stuff, okay? And we were showing people reach out and say the most horrific things. They bring these families down the rabbit holes with them, and the families just want the answers, and so you're chasing the white rabbit, and even down to the dot situation, people who are willing to literally claim that they saw this or were there and speak to the victims' families about it. And so, but it's another reason of why sit down and give them the information. What's holding you back at this point?
Yeah, agree. Oh my God, I forgot about your guys' coverage on that and how deep those DMs go and stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very twisted. Very, very twisted. Yeah, I don't know what her color. She's around, but I haven't actually seen her since he's pleaded guilty.
We have all the sealed stuff, and we're still fighting for the information to come out when it's just 4 kids that got killed in their bed. There's no top secret information here. There's no national security. It's literally people thinking that they don't work for us anymore, guys. They think that we are lucky to be in that courtroom, and they're like a form of royal bloodlines, and they sit there in that courtroom and they tell us how it goes, and how dare us question them, and how dare us know what's going on, and question what they're doing. And I appreciate the media because it's one thing an angry dad saying that. It's a different thing for ex-prosecutors to get on your guys' station and say this is questionable, why'd they tear the house down. There's literally the 1112 video is referencing sounds in that house. So, it could easily be that a jury wanted to reproduce what those sounds would have sounded like on that camera. And they couldn't do that once the house was torn down.
Was there any contact made or any overture at all from prosecutor's office, the victim's rights advocate that's supposed to be associated with you, about the process going forward now in order to find out more information? Have they at least guided you? Will you have a better shot at getting information than someone like me?
No, they don't like us. They don't like the fact that we question their authority. They don't like the fact that we talk to you guys right now. So I don't think they'll help us at all. They'll try to make it as most difficult as possible because we bring a huge spotlight. If we're gonna read it, we're gonna explain it to people how we understand it, and I don't think they want that attention, and that's probably why most of them have already retired. So I don't think we're gonna get any help. We don't have a victim's advocate. She's bound by the rules of that court. So if the judge tells her to shut her mouth and don't talk about it, there's an open investigation of the leak, and she's a part of that team. She can't talk to us. We brought up the leak in court January 13th. Gray accused that office of leaking the information. And ever since then, we've been able to prove that we knew about the sheath and the DNA, CODIS hit, all that stuff before. And you think if there's an investigation, why hasn't anyone ever called us and asked us where we heard it? So there's no investigation going on. They're lying to him.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, we brought this up earlier. If there's because there's a special prosecutor assigned to determine the source of this leak. And so if that was actually happening, and that this, according to Steve, why weren't we reached out to? Why weren't we reached out to and asked, where did we hear this information from?
Right.
Yeah.
That is interesting why and now they are represented. So technically they wouldn't be reached out to. That probably would come from their attorney, through their attorney, because,
right.
But still, at the end of the day, if you want to know if certain people have information that they shouldn't have, right? And if one of those people happens to be the Goncalves family, that has information that they shouldn't have, don't you want to know how they have the info? I would want to know. And and I'm not being paid to be a special prosecutor. I'd want answers to that. And that's where I'd start. Who knew what, and when did they know it? And I would just go down the list.
Exactly. And he's going to get into a little bit more of that. And I found this part really interesting, just how many people were sharing information with them.
Yeah.
If they're telling him there's an investigation, there's no investigation going on, because the first person who told you that there was leaks and proved to you by telling you what they've heard, that eventually becomes part of your case. The sheep, we knew about the sheep before it was. We knew about the white car before they released it. They never came and asked us who told us that information. They didn't even try. So
who was it?
Oh, I would never. I'm not going to give that information out. I really respect the people that actually reached out, tried to help us. They're awesome mothers and fathers, and they cared about their community, and they wanted to make sure that this was done the right way. And
so there were people in the investigation before it was even publicly announced that they had the sheath, that as parents, professions aside, gave these families allegedly information, which really wouldn't surprise me. But that's very interesting, because that's the first time we heard that.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, because he's not just talking about the car, he's talking about the sheath too. That's first week, because we hadn't heard about that. And so, yeah. And so now, even thinking about it, you guys, for the Papa Rogers, whole account, it was already moving and words were already gone through. I don't take that really as anything. Okay, so there's that.
That's super interesting in reference to Papa Rogers.
Yeah.
Can we rewind it just a little bit? Because Scott H pointed something out. Scott says, he just pointed them towards a woman, the way he hastily added fathers. And I didn't initially notice if there was some hastily addition of the word father. So I'd like, if you don't mind, could we go listen to that just a little bit, please? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
And anyone ever called us and asked us where we heard it? So there's no investigation going on. They're lying to Hitler if they're telling him there's an investigation. There's no investigation going on, because the first person who told you that there was leaks and proved to you by telling you what they've heard, that eventually becomes part of your case. The sheep, we knew about the sheep before it was. We knew about the white car before they released it. They never came and asked us who told us that information. They didn't even try. So
who was it?
Oh, I would never. I'm not going to give that information out. I really respect the people that actually reached out, tried to help us. They're awesome mothers and fathers, and they cared about their community, and they wanted to.
I don't take it as he added. I think that there's probably I believe multiple people shared multiple things with them, but there's probably one in the forefront of his mind, and it may have been a she.
That's how I took it. And I also think that the most likely thing is probably the spouse of somebody close to the investigation, not somebody directly connected to the investigation.
Totally possible. Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean, you know.
When he said the and fathers, he probably was just remembering all the people who did, like you said, multiple
Yeah.
people. So
Mhm.
Because he said people easily. If it was just
Mhm.
one woman, you know, like I wouldn't know. He said it very easily,
Right.
but there's probably someone in the forefront of his mind that he probably still stays in contact with to this day.
Probably right.
and
Mhm.
then Ashley, who was it?
Yeah.
I mean,
She's
look,
working
you can't blame a girl for trying. Listen, if you were on our panel, you all know we would have been like, who? We would have
Yeah,
been like
of
the
course
most
he's not gonna
bootlegging his
say.
Hogwarts owl ever. Who? Who?
I would not expect him to answer that anyways. I just thought it was funny because her tone was like, wait, who was it? Like she wasn't gonna
was
let
it?
that go. Yeah.
Well, but he does name drop Coroner Kathy Mabbutt, and you guys have to remember all the way in the beginning.
Mhm. I remember from the beginning. I do.
Yep.
Yes.
Coroner Kathy Mabbutt, she gave the Goncalveses minor child, 17-year-old child at the time, details over a phone call of the injuries, you know. And so I don't know. You have to remember,
Yeah.
she's an elected official. Her background isn't really adequate, and she had given. I still can't do. Shay did. I don't know if she's back yet, but I think because we have the original Coroner Mabbutt's sit down interview, but then she did go on Ashley Banfield, but then it was like taken down or something. I remember we couldn't find it.
You're
Yeah,
you're
because
looking for
Go
that
ahead,
like
Shay.
clip. I'm sorry.
Was it taken down when Coroner Mabbutt went on Banfield?
Yeah, but I think I saved somebody else's screen recording of it somewhere. You want me to try to find it?
I think
Well,
it was
no.
What's the Obsession, right? That had the screen recording.
Yeah, What's the Obsession has it. Yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
saved it from.
Well, only because Ashley will mention, as you'll hear, you know, like for you know, she came on for an exclusive interview on you know my show, but yeah, and you took it down for whatever reason.
Yeah, Ashley.
Yeah, Ashley.
Well, you know what? After you had asked about coming on today, I was watching. I didn't watch anything his interviews, but I was watching like some other videos on it, just catching up a little bit. And I noticed that the Chapins also said when they did these interviews recently about the coroner calling them and the different things that she had told them.
Yeah,
So that's interesting.
she said a lot. That she should never have said, especially to a
She said a lot.
child on the phone.
Yeah.
She's a talker.
She's a talker, is right.
Here's the
And-
thing, though. I just looked this up about why. Okay, so the coroner in Idaho, what their job is in Idaho specifically. In Idaho, a coroner investigates death that occurs under specific circumstances, determines the cause and manner of death, and may also perform autopsy. Yes, they are elected. Not all of them have medical backgrounds, but they're the ones that issue the death certificate, and they do have access to the autopsy. So she is, while she cannot explain the injuries from a medical standpoint, like she could not haul her cookies onto the stand and be proffered as an expert witness and talk about the injuries. She is capable of reading. And so she gets a copy of the autopsy report. And so she's quite capable of reading and giving out those details. She wouldn't be able to explain them, but she can give the details. I just wanted to point that out.
But
I
it
think
makes
she
you
gave
wonder why.
weren't they contradictory as well? Like her different interviews, like they, yeah.
Well, obviously she wasn't reading that verbatim. I'm assuming that what she was doing is remembering it from memory, recalling it.
I think the thing that she said that gave people some pause was that they were likely all asleep.
Yes.
Right. When you find out later that there's a few defensive wounds. So I think that kind of made people a little side-eye. But I mean,
Yeah.
she's going off what information she had and probably also trying to keep it close to the chest to some degree.
Right. And it's possible, like, I don't know, sometimes people will say things that are close to an investigation and intentionally that they're not required to tell the truth. And they may say some things just to see what the reaction is. It's not really for the public. It's more for the suspect.
See, I know that in regards to, like the press conference, I could rationalize that in my mind and stuff.
Yeah.
But with her, I don't really see it. I don't know why
She did
even
too
that
much.
interview. Yeah,
She did way too much. I mean, let's be honest. She just did way too damn much.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. That's all. She should never, like 40 Love Style says, she should never. It should not have happened. She should not have given that interview. You either going to mention it all or you're going to shut the F up. That's my feeling.
Yep. But just knowing that there were conversations happening privately with the victims' families and details given, and think about it, to this day, they have compiled all of the things that essentially people have just either leaked to them or told them unofficially, and they still don't know the actual black and white. Here are the answers. They don't have
right. Them. They don't know what is they should sit down with the families that want to sit down. It's not you're not being subpoenaed. You're not required to be there. But if you want to be there, they should sit down with the families and that want that have questions and want answers, and lay it out for them so they know definitively for their own peace of mind, if that's what they need to what happened to their child. And if I don't understand that. Even with the West Memphis 3, when they were discussing the Alford plea, when that was going on, they contacted each and every one of the families. They brought them in, and there was a whole conference with the families before anything was ever made public, officially public. Obviously, there were people that were close to Damien, Jason, and Jesse at the time who had an inkling, but even they were on the hush about it. Do you know what I mean? They talked to the families first.
Well, if the coroner was just listen, she should have been reading it verbatim is all I'm saying. Okay. Study it. If you're going to talk about it. That's all I have to add. Sorry.
No, agreed. Okay, let's see.
Make sure that this was done the right way. And we did know some stuff, but I respect all those people, and I would never give out their information. And they're all safe.
Understanding. It makes perfect sense. You got a loyalty to those who loved you and cared for you throughout this horrible process. In the interim, I kept thinking along the way there would be things that that we don't know, and that you were sworn to secrecy because of the gag order or any other reasons. Is there information now that I haven't known and the rest of us haven't known up until today?
Most of the information we found out were just people calling up. I've had other officers call us up and just say, I don't know what just happened in the court today, but I don't support it. People so angry at what was happening in that courtroom that they would literally pick up their phone and call us and say, this is what's on Bryan's phone. This is what he was searching. This individual was sexually motivated. I don't care what Thompson said. They've got a plan for him.
Whoa, sorry, I have to pause that quickly because that's what I was saying earlier. There are people who, close to the investigation, are giving out information, but at the same time, I'm like, Steve, there's a gag order, so essentially there is that admission that information is being passed along. I'm not saying, necessarily I'm against them knowing the information versus not sure if he realizes what he's saying. But there are people who are close to the investigation that is against how the court process was going and saying, listen, this is what we found on Bryan's phone.
Yeah. I can't really say that I'm surprised. This happened with Gypsy too, when she was given the plea deal. See, at the time that Gypsy was, while she was awaiting trial, I don't know how many people know this or even remember this, but Gypsy was being investigated for fraud, not just murder. But when she took that plea deal, everything stopped. And if you go back and you go watch the old documentaries, the ones that first came out, nothing from now. I'm talking about back in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, that time period. If you go back and watch those, listen, pay very close attention to the investigating officers, when they are talking about, their investigation and whatnot, watch their demeanor. You can tell they're irritated that she got a plea deal.
Right.
And especially the plea deal that she got.
Well, and it kind of halts, right? And not to circle back to Chris Watts, but we heard the same thing when Chris Watts took that plea. The investigation essentially halted. It just stopped.
Yeah, that's true. It halts everything.
But yeah, I'm not surprised that
some of it, obviously, with Gypsy, it's a little different. There was some overlap because remember, she had a co-defendant.
Yes.
So there is that part too. But you're right, though. The investigation does stop.
Mm-hmm. I think like a respect. Yeah. All right, let's see.
Got a job role for that man. And it's not every day that you get somebody who wants to be a police officer, is dying to be a police officer, is literally talking to them every single day about how he was going to be a police officer. It's not every day you get a master's degree in criminology that is going to go into prison, and they're going to leverage that. That's what they're interested in. They're not interested in him being locked up in 23 hours of solitaire where he's not going to be able to have any influence. They want him to go in there and actually have influence and work with them.
And be a resource for crime fighting in the future?
Yeah. His fantasy was to be an officer, or the earliest one was like a Green Beret or something like that, a ranger. So this guy's had like these grandeur visions of himself since he was just a little kid. And I think one of the first things he told the officers when they arrested him in Pennsylvania was like, let's get a cup of coffee. I'm working on my criminology PhD and I'd like to interview you. It's like, this guy wants to be a cop or wants to be somebody of importance. He always has been. And that was part of the reason why we were trying to get them to take that into account and not plead with him. Don't give him the position of power. Basically dictate the terms to him and say we're not going to accept this unless you prove who you are.
What did she yell?
So fast.
She said, "We gotta go." It was just so real in that moment, because they have to catch their flight.
We gotta go.
We gotta go. She knows he's on the news nature, but it goes to show again, like how little it means that like their focus is advocating for their child. It is.
It really is. And Angel D, we're going to circle back to the Ed Kemper because I got some theories for y'all, but I want to get through this first with Melissa and
definitely
Shay and Allie.
Okay.
It is my favorite.
Yeah, Ed is very interesting.
Ed is my favorite as well. Shay, you and I have that in common. And by the way, Shay, just while I have you, because I won't remember it later, you and I were supposed to get together on a project. And then you never did message me back. And I was like, well.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I think I wanted to talk Amber Hagerman with you.
Yes, you did.
The neck of the woods,
Yes. We must do that.
Shame.
Yes. I'm really bad about Facebook Messenger. Like, I'll go on a spree and then I just don't go back.
I texted Allie one time and didn't actually hit send for like an hour. So I'm not judging.
Were you mad at her for not responding
why
to you?
Not texting back?
Allie never gets mad at me for stuff like that. She knows I'm buffering 25/8. She knows how I roll.
I'll give you my number, Jinlu, just so it's easier.
Absolutely perfect. Because I definitely want to cover that case.
Yes.
I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time. And I think it's time. So anyway.
I'd like to, because it was in the apartment complex where my dad lived, where she was found. So I'm very connected in my own way to it. And when they had the latest anniversary, Melissa shared her memorial thing, and I just really would love to see it solved.
Me too. I know. I do the same thing to ATS. I also sometimes forget to hit send. It's bad.
Whoa, that was me. I
Oh,
actually hit
okay.
my YouTube. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Okay, here we go.
Fascinated by the comment he made upon arrest. Have you arrested anyone else? Thinking, is he throwing a red herring in? Is he really curious about other possible suspects? But I'm very curious about what you just mentioned, that coming out of hearings, there would be people who would call you and say, I don't like what's happening in that courtroom. I know what's on his phone. I know. What did you learn from those phone calls without divulging who it was who called?
Just weird porn fetishes, but two of the fetishes were in that room. Drunk, passed out girls and gagging girls. And those are two things that were part of that crime scene. For Thompson to say that there was no sexual assault, of course there wasn't. He didn't have enough time. Somebody came up there. But why are you defending somebody who just killed 4 people? Why are you not even making him stand in the courtroom and admit that he killed 4 people? I mean, it's upside down world sometimes when you go in those court systems and they're literally, oh, you've been so respectful. You can sit down when you plead guilty, with a yes and no answer. So we're just glad to be done with it. We're glad to move on.
When you said drunk, passed out girls, gagging girls, was there something that happened at the crime scene involving gagging that you heard?
Yeah. That's what we've heard. That's why we want to get all these facts straight. So we don't want to have a statement that is inaccurate. But when you have a prosecution that just is okay with covering everything up and not telling you what's going on, it's hard to be accurate. And they've criticized us for not being accurate on certain things. And it's because we're not getting the facts. Parents shouldn't have to beg to know what happened to their kid the last 24
Yeah,
hours
the
of their
point.
life. We figured out everything that we could. We got the grub truck video before they did. We got the white car. We got the 112 surveillance even before they got it. We were the ones that tell them to go to these cameras and pull them off. I'm sure they already were going to do that anyway, but we got it before they did. So they were just concerned that, they weren't in control and we knew too much stuff. And
did someone with the investigation describe that Kaylee or Maddie was gagged during this horrible crime?
I was told that by somebody in I can give that out. That was Babbitt. That was Babbitt who gave that information.
What did she say?
There was some damage to her. There was some damage around her mouth right here, like somebody had pressed in and tried to keep her quiet. She'd been hit multiple times in her head and her skull was damaged.
We gotta go.
So, all right, they're telling me I gotta go. So we gotta fly. We gotta fly out of here.
Understandable. And just for our viewers, Kathy Babbitt is the coroner, so she has spoken with you about these details. Steve,
And that's where it ended, because I was trying to get through it without breaking it up. But first of all, I just love how, once again, Chrissy's like, we got to go. And he's like, all right, they're telling me we got to, he's just trying to get in whatever he can get in. But okay, there's a lot to unpack there. And Steve is, like I said in the beginning, they're talking about Bill Thompson when he said that there was no sexual component to these crimes. Yet two of the things found allegedly on Bryan Kohberger's phone, what we heard about in the Dateline for the first time, and then what Steve was told by someone was that they found porn-related searches. Oh no.
She'll be back. She can't hear.
Or
it froze. It froze for me. Shake my head. I'm gonna refresh. I got you.
Okay, perfect. There were porn-related searches surrounding drunk, passed-out girls and then gagging. And so Ashley asks him, is there something that indicates that any of them were gagged? And apparently, and we're hearing more and more about Kaylee's injuries. It was the last time we heard Steve explain that her nose was essentially broken, but there was bruising of some sort to her mouth to where it appears like her mouth was covered, not necessarily by a rag or something, versus even pressing down and holding to get her to be quiet. We had not heard those details before. What do you guys think about that?
I think that Kohberger had a whole plan of what he was going to do, right? But what do they say? Best laid plans. And what happened is everything. I think fate, if you will. I don't know what you want to call it, but the plan didn't go according to plan. Kaylee was there when she wasn't supposed to be there. Xana and Ethan were there when I don't think it was really about Xana. I have a feeling that if he was watching that house, he knew who lived there, right? But I don't think he planned, and think that the bigger issue was really Ethan, because I think he was worried that he couldn't take Ethan. I did not realize, and I don't know how I did not know this, or if I just blocked it out, or maybe some new song lyrics overwrote this data, but I didn't realize how tall Ethan was. I didn't realize that.
6'4".
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was like 6'2" or something, but when I watched the Prime thing, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that, you guys really have to, not just for the crime element, but mostly because the way that the family members and friends speak about the victims, Kohberger did everything to dehumanize them, and this rehumanizes them. It reminds everybody that at that house that night, and everybody that found them the next day, they were kids. And so I think that everything went awry that night. But yeah, I think he did try to silence him, and there is a reason, and maybe at some point it will come out. I hope that the families, if they want to hear it first, get to hear it first. But there's a reason why they believe that Maddie was the target. And I think that it goes, well, I'm going to leave it there for now.
Well, and it angers me because one can get sexual gratification elsewhere other than actual intercourse, especially with a weapon such as a knife that can be used as an extension of one's body. It's very intimate. It's very up close. And so I did not like how it was immediately shut down. There was no sexual component to this. I don't know. Shay, Allie, what do you guys think?
I don't know, except if it's Mabbit, like I want to see the proof, not just from Steve. But you know what? He made a good point. Like, how can he be accurate when he's not getting the facts? So that's kind of where I'm at. It's freaking terrifying and heartbreaking too, though. It's just so sad.
It is. Shay?
I mean, I kind of said it in chat. I was talking to 40 Love Style. She was saying how she doesn't really believe Mabbit. I would really like to hear from the medical examiner. Like,
yes,
the injuries, like, get a better understanding outside of, Mabbit. But again, it kind of went back to what we were talking about previously. I think the emphasis was more that they didn't have within the crime itself the physical components of SA. But like you said, there's this other circumstantial evidence that if it's true that Bryan was into that type of stuff, and you're thinking about when the crimes were committed and how they were committed, then that could lead one to think. I think you'd have to bring in like a forensic psychologist and profiler, like more to kind of talk about those aspects.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I think Harlot says it well too. I think that what Bill Thompson was trying to do is separate physical evidence that they could prove in court from motive. I do believe that there was a component there, but that's more to motive than physical evidence, like Shay was saying.
Yes. It was his wording. That, again, it seemed like he was minimizing the evidence against him, but I could rationalize that in my brain. I think he was, like I said earlier, trying to make it a point that there's a reason we are entering into this plea deal also. And so making sure to point out, yes, we have him in and around the area of the King Road residence, but we do not have him entering in. He was making a point of these are all things that could work against them if they were in front of a jury,
Right.
But I could understand wanting to shut down any speculation regarding it. I just, maybe if it was different wording, it would have been better.
It's sad and it's attorneys' words are their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That is what an attorney does. And it's kind of sad that this prosecutor, this longtime prosecutor, his words failed him in that moment. I'm sure there was a much more eloquent, better way to put that left no doubt, that didn't give the impression that the crime was being minimized. I don't think that was Bill Thompson's intention. I don't think he was trying to minimize what Bryan Kohberger did. I think he was trying to clarify, and he chose an unfortunate set of words in a certain order that it actually came across that way. Right. So I get why people are very frustrated.
Well, and the other thing that Steve had mentioned within this clip, and we had spoken about this earlier on when we showed Asget the recreation that she made, and she did it for the Amazon Prime series. And so in that, I don't want to say theory, from source. It wasn't for Prime. Sorry, she did it for
Dateline, and she's doing it for Netflix as well.
Thank you. For Dateline and Netflix. Either way, she had, in the reenactment that she made, she had Xana going upstairs and essentially interrupting Bryan in the act. And that is when she goes back down, he follows her and stuff. And that's essentially what Steve just said here too. He didn't have enough time. He was interrupted. And so I'm curious, okay, where is that information coming from? Because now this is the second time I'm hearing about that. I never had considered really Xana going upstairs earlier on. But is that what they believe has happened?
Wait, who did the recreation?
Asget.
Okay, that makes sense, because I've been seeing people talking about like, oh, why in the new whatever is she going upstairs, like in comments and stuff, and I didn't know what that they were talking about.
It does make you wonder why that was added. Where did that information come from? If that was for the recreation, is that what you're asking, MJ? Because right. I'm wondering that too.
Yes.
So she said she had a single source that they had data from Xana's phone that she went up a flight of stairs, and that there may have been possibly some evidence either upstairs or going down. And I think if you also go back and you think about when Judge Hippler did his order on the Franks motion, he included in those statements and information things that the first time we were actually ever hearing about. And it was maybe that Dylan was confused. It wasn't really Kaylee playing with the dog. It could have been Xana going up the stairs and coming back down. It was mentioned in that as well.
I see.
So I don't know about the phone thing. That is interesting. I think that would be really telling if they had that and we just haven't seen that. But again, that goes to tell me a little bit more that it could have been a source close to law enforcement that would have access to that type of information if it's true.
Same information that the families are getting, but that would be the first time we heard about that. And very interesting when you refer back to the PCA and Dylan's statements and how she heard what was unfolding. And you think about, and now you think back to Ann Taylor when she said in that court hearing that Dylan had heard someone coming down the stairs, yet it couldn't have been Kaylee. And so it's like, oh crap, like, was this always Xana who went up and came back down saying there's someone here? And I'm very curious about it, because
did she hear something?
Yeah.
Did she hear something that made her go up those stairs? Then she went up there and she could hear something, and maybe she came back. This does make logical sense if you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. She hears something. She goes up those stairs. She listens at Maddie's door. She hears something else. She comes down the stairs to get Ethan.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm always going to struggle with this. If he really went in there with the intention for just Maddie,
right,
it really makes sense to me more so, especially now that we know he sat down. He sat down on Xana's chair.
Yes.
for at least 30 seconds, which is very eerie, very, very eerie. And I struggle. Was that pure exhaustion, which half my mind takes me to, especially if it was only intended to be one, even
Right.
if it was intended to be 4, which I don't think, it's still going to be pure exhaustion. But then the other half of my mind's like, or did he sit and bask in? Yeah.
Think, contemplate, take it all in. And I know that people really struggle with the time. 30 seconds, like when you say the words 30 seconds, it doesn't sound like a lot. But I can assure you, if all 4 of us on this panel muted right now and we muted for the next 30 seconds, it would seem like a long time.
Yes, it's a long time. Especially if you're thinking about it in the sense of if he didn't intend for 4. And you have to remember, Murphy was actively barking this entire time. He is aware that there are at least 2 others in this house, and there is loud noises. Your adrenaline is rushing. He knows we have the thumps and the whimpers that are being picked up in the neighboring audio. So the point is that it's loud. And when your adrenaline is rushing like that, your perception of time is off. So I don't think he would have, unless he was wearing, I don't know what he was wearing, like whether it was a watch or nothing, I don't know, but would he have been able to even determine how much time has passed? And so the fact that he even sat down at all is disturbing.
It is disturbing, but there's part of me, and this is just one of my weird rabbit holes that I've gone down. Okay. So remember when the noise complaints were called in, and we know that he was, pinged at somewhere near their residence a bunch of times.
Yes.
I've always wondered if Bryan wasn't watching one of the nights that the noise complaints were called in, and perhaps he timed the police response. It does make me wonder. He does seem to be one of those people that does his research. So it has always made me wonder about that.
That was what he spoke to when he was doing the criminology interviews. He was speaking to a criminal who apparently, it was explained that they would call in a noise complaint to determine how long essentially it took for police to respond. And so a lot of people are speculating, is that something he did?
Thank goodness that other people are speculating this too, because a lot of times I be keeping my speculations, but I know I'm comfortable over here to do it. But a lot of times I keep it to myself because I don't want people to be in my head that much to know just the kinds of things that I be thinking sometimes.
Now I'm just really curious. This is the part, Allie, with recreating Xana's movement. So we knew Xana was likely awake and scrolling through TikTok, but according to this single source that Asget had, and again, she made this recreation for Dateline and then working for Netflix. And so where did this information come from, where essentially after 4:13, I don't remember the exact minute, I know it's going to pop up in a second, but shows that there is an elevation from her phone, like she climbed steps. And that changes everything for me. I always believed they crossed paths. But I always thought they crossed paths on the 2nd floor, not on the 3rd floor. But now when you think about what Dylan's statements were and what she heard, and she did hear coming down the stairs, and she did hear there's someone here, and she did hear, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Was that Xana originally going in? Did she walk in and essentially see something?
It does make you wonder. And you have to think about too, when we read the PCA, right? It's very clear to me anyway, from that PCA, that is not all the things that Dylan told them. And I don't even know that it's even in the order that she told it. Does that make sense? It seems, they put in details, they put in just enough to secure a warrant. That's it. That's all. And I was, it does seem to me, and especially when they did release some of the text messages, Allie and I talked about this, where there's like a gap in communication, because the statement, now I don't remember, it's completely lost out of my brain, who said Xana was wearing all black tonight. Bethany said it. It came out of nowhere. It's not in the flow of the conversation prior, right? So it
There were
suggests
calls between.
yes, it suggests one of two things, right? Either they were communicating via another form, like a phone call. Now we know that, but I didn't at the time. Okay. Or there's parts left out, which I have always thought that it's probably a combination of both.
Both, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There were
So
very quick calls between. Go ahead, Shay.
Sorry. So I pulled up the order of a Frank's hearing, and I'll just like very briefly just state how Judge Hippler puts together this evidence. So he says, however, the statement challenged by Kohberger can be read in two ways. That one, Dylan said, I think it was Miss Gonzalez, which is how the defendant apparently reads it, and which he claims is inconsistent with Dylan's interview statements. Or two, that Dylan said she heard Miss Gonzalez, but law enforcement had reason to think it could have been someone else. When the statement is viewed in context, the latter makes more sense. In their respective exhibit, as Detective Payne and Sergeant Blaker immediately followed up the challenge statement with the following. A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this also could have been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake using the TikTok app. And so it says that they go on to explain that Payne and Blake are effectively conveying that why they believe Dylan's statements of who she heard may have been questionable. And this is all in regards to going up and down the stairs. I didn't read the paragraph before because it was more so that it couldn't have been Kaylee because she would have already been unalived by then.
Right.
So I mean they're kind of putting it out there a little bit in there. I don't think that saying they say they have the forensic download and they mention the TikTok app, but they don't mention any Apple health data, you know. That's the only thing I'll note on that. And it also okay, sorry. And then it says in a footnote, based on Kohberger's proffer, it is not foregone fact that Dylan was mistaken when she had heard Kaylee. It says that she was awake around 4 when she heard Kaylee walk upstairs and then run back down the stairs saying someone's here. Miss Kernodle received a DoorDash delivery at the residence at 4 a.m. See Payne Exhibit A, Bates 5160. It is entirely possible Miss Gonzalez ran downstairs when she heard the delivery person and then went to bed, after which she was killed. So they're throwing out some conjecture there too.
Right.
It's kind of a little conflicted. I'm trying to figure out where they're getting, like where Asget may be getting some of that information from.
Well, and that's why I piqued my ears when I heard Steve say it, because I was like, oh, okay, now that's the second time I'm hearing that.
Right.
Because why do I keep saying Judge Thompson? Prosecutor Thompson. That's like the fourth time this live I've done that. Prosecutor Thompson, I was listening very closely, and he didn't make any indication that she had gone upstairs versus cross paths.
Right.
I love that recreation, Melissa, that you just
Yes.
were playing. Like, even they show, okay, I love the way that they show the apartment footage, the footage from next door. But what is that? I know that's on his path home, but who got those pictures and why are they? Like, I'm curious, is that where he put the weapon? Is that like what they're insinuating, possibly?
She was speculating that was, and that's why I'll send you the link. I would watch it with the volume because she took from the PCA the path and how he disconnected from the network and the route that he didn't take, which was on the main highways back to his apartment. So the path he would have taken, and she found that spot, but she lined it up to the time that he is seen back on the camera, and it lines up perfectly down to a minute. So I guess speculation, but it was very good when you line up the amount of time.
Yeah, but it's speculation based on actual evidence.
Yes.
Which is the good kind of speculation.
Yes. It was down to the exact minute of how long it would take, even with him stopping, let's say for 10 minutes. It was so accurate, and it was really interesting.
I love that. And even like when they show the apartment footage and then him coming down the hill, like this lines up with being him, you know, I think that was a great job.
Yeah, she
And
did an amazing job.
She did a great job.
And then the only other thing I wanted to say was I love the way that Hitler has completely, like, he knows what he's talking about. He's not taking this lightly at all. And I love
No.
that.
We
Same.
love Judge Hippler. I understand, Steve is frustrated overall. I understand he's frustrated that he didn't have Ryan necessarily stand the whole time, but listen, like Judge Hippler, he's doing his job. His job isn't there to be mean, even though
Right.
you may want him to be, but he's doing his job and he's very good at what he does. I'm very happy with Judge Hippler.
Agreed. And we're viewing it from a different perspective. Okay.
Right.
For us, while we want justice for Maddie, for Xana, for Ethan, for Kaylee, it isn't personal to us in the same way that it's very personal to the families. But so and we have seen, Judge Bev, we're all looking at you. We've seen out of control judges, right? Judges who are just like Judge Bev, she would just totally be like, can you answer that? I'm going to allow it. I mean, her rulings were random. It never made any damn ass sense. Bottom line is, we have seen some judges doing the most. Judge Hine, I'm also looking at you over there in Ohio. Appreciate your shenanigans either. So,
well, yeah, he has
Judge Hippler is professional.
Yeah, he is, and he doesn't allow Anne to push it too far, in which like Judge would.
Judge did.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Brian Etten, News Daddy, and he gave a short little 3-minute on Twitter. So let's take a listen.
Can you imagine what the victims are going through trying to figure out exactly what they're going to say for their victim impact statements at the Bryan Kohberger sentencing? I spoke to Kaylee Goncalves' sister, Olivia, who hasn't done any interviews in years. I'm going to release the full 1 hour plus interview on Monday, and it's really, really emotional. But I want to play a part of it for you now where she explains to me how she decided what she's going to say at the sentencing and why she decided she is going to address Bryan Kohberger directly.
There's a little bit of a existential crisis that exists that's like, well, then what the hell am I even doing? Right? It's not going to make a difference as far as sentencing goes. I feel like I can cry for 1,000 years and still never be able to truly articulate the impact that this loss has had on not just me, but my husband, my children. I could probably go on for the rest of my life and still have more to say. So I kind of had to switch gears because the purpose for me isn't so pointed, right? It's a little vague. And I started writing, like 3 different types of speeches. One was almost like a funeral speech, like, an ode to Kaylee and Maddie. And then one was more so directed towards, like that raw heartbreak of, speaking to them throughout this whole process and, giving them in some semblance a goodbye of like a close to this chapter. And then the third type of speech that I was writing was directed at the defendant himself. And I mean, that's what I eventually went with. So my speech isn't about the process, the court, the lawyers, the judge, it's not even really about Kaylee or Maddie, because Kaylee and Maddie know. They've been with me every single step of the way, and I refuse to get up there and further re-victimize myself over and over and over for a defendant who does not give a damn. I no amount of tears, no amount of, tear jerkers, hearts, nothing is ever going to make him feel anything at best. And at worst, he enjoys it. And I'm just not gonna do it.
So again, you can imagine how emotional this is for Olivia. Again, I'm gonna release the full 1 hour plus interview on Monday. It's actually part of a podcast that I'm starting, which I'm really excited about because I can do these longer format interviews and just sort of let people speak their mind, which is really telling when you just let people talk. So anyway, that'll be out on Monday. I'll post a link on Monday.
That's heartbreaking. See, like, again, how do you even go about making those victim impact statements when you don't know all of the details?
Right. But I think what Olivia was saying there, which I thought was so fascinating, is the way that she reasoned it out in her mind, what she would and wouldn't say, because I think that her reasoning to speak directly to Bryan but not give him what he, I think she's right, what he wants, is so mature.
Yeah.
And so smart. And I think that's part of the reason why Steve Gonsalves feels so angry, is because not only does he want to be able to speak to the details accurately, I think that's a part of it. I think he's obviously being honest when he says that, but I think he needs to know exactly who the F he's dealing with. And I think for him, the details will let him know exactly who he's dealing with, and so that he can say what he wants to say because that's the only time he's going to get that opportunity to speak to the defendant, where he knows the defendant can hear him, is right there.
Bendy, do you know they had to choose between going to the sentencing and their children college, like dropping them off at college?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The whole process is just like, it wasn't done right
at all.
Yeah. Aubrey's going to Baylor.
In Dallas?
Waco.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, if they want to be there, or at the same time struggling with moving on and being, functioning for your other children too. Like, it wasn't done right.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't done, in my opinion. It doesn't seem like it was done with the victims in mind. And the victims include their families.
Absolutely.
It includes their friends. And, I've been listening to the book being read, and I've always had a concept, obviously, of the ripple effect that crimes like these have on so many people. But the part I was listening to today was respective of was talking about that what was it called? The evidentiary hearing that didn't end up happening. And one of the people that was going to testify at that evidentiary hearing had to consider whether or not she was going to do this type of therapy that does have an impact on memory, because she knew that she was going to be called to testify. And so she put that therapy off. She's continued to put the therapy off for all of these years,
right,
so that she can testify. And it's those little things. That's why it's just, I think even me sometimes, like, can't take it all in at one time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, objectively speaking, it probably is the smartest decision with the plea. It's just the way it was gone about. It was gone about ruthlessly, honestly.
Right. It just seemed so cold in the way that it was done to the families. And I just, I wish that they would have went about it a different way. I do understand why they took the plea. The fact of the matter is this: the state, they have to convince 12 jurors. Ann Taylor only has to convince one. That's it. And why take the risk? If this fool is willing to plead it out and say and plead guilty, then great. But that's the other thing. At that point, you're not going to him. He's coming to you. You have the power. So if it couldn't be me, I would be like, okay, listen here, BK, let me tell you what's going to happen. Yeah, we can do a plea deal. We'll take the death penalty off the table. But guess what, bro? You finna get up there and testify and mention it all. And oh, by the way, we're going to need to know what you did with that knife.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
so simple.
Get ready to go to trial and hope that you don't have to face the firing squad. How about that? That'd be me. I'd probably be fired after that for saying that, but I'd still say it. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, especially with someone like Thompson, where you're done. You're done.
Right.
This is how you're ending your career.
Right.
This is Shay grabbed this because again, she loves the Idaho Statesman. It's behind a paywall, but this was published and it says Bryan Kohberger interview, home search left impression on the Pullman police chief. Because again, now that the gag order is lifted, we're starting to hear from people. And let me boot that former ally. So it says Police Chief Gary Jenkins still remembers the day Bryan Kohberger interviewed for an internship with the Pullman Police Department. Jenkins had no idea that the graduate student in front of him would go on to kill 4 Idaho students that same year. For nearly 3 years, law enforcement officers, attorneys, and others involved in the Kohberger case have been unable to speak publicly about the case by a gag order. That changed Thursday when 4th Judicial District Judge Stephen Hippler lifted that non-dissemination order. Jenkins was the Pullman police chief when Kohberger applied to work there, a few months before Jenkins left the agency to head to the police force at Washington State University, where Kohberger was working to earn a PhD in criminology and criminal justice. Kohberger admitted earlier this month to 4 counts of first-degree murder and fatally stabbing to death 4 University of Idaho students, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. In an interview with the Idaho Statesman on Thursday, Jenkins recalled his experience of the case that began when Kohberger broke into the victim's Moscow home in the early morning hours of November 13, 2022. Jenkins said he conducted Zoom interviews with 4 candidates for the police internship in April 22. Kohberger, then 27, wrote in his application that he had an interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations, the arrest affidavit stated. I was looking for someone who was really interested in conducting relevant and actionable research for us, rather than just theoretical research, Jenkins told Statesman by the phone. The chief said whoever got the job would need to be able to get police officers to open up and talk about their work. Kohberger's demeanor ruled him out from getting the position.
Yeah, Kohberger cannot people.
No. I just felt that he would have a difficult time developing that trust with my staff, Jenkins said. He seemed a little bit awkward in talking. He wasn't very conversational, and I just thought he would not be a good fit and would have been difficulty working with my staff. Jenkins wouldn't think about Kohberger for another 8 months. So in December, Jenkins was well aware of the quadruple murder in Moscow, just a 15-minute drive east from Pullman. And Moscow Police Chief James Fry sent Jenkins a message on December 19, 2022, requesting that he come to the Moscow station the following day. Jenkins assumed it would be another briefing, so he was surprised to be led into a room with about 20 to 30 people, including members of the FBI and the Idaho State Police. They informed him that they had identified a suspect using DNA found at the scene. That suspect, his colleagues told him, was a student at WSU named Bryan Kohberger. It took me a minute, and then I said, you know that name is very familiar. I think I've talked to Bryan Kohberger before. So Jenkins later learned that Kohberger drove a car that his officers had already flagged as part of their investigation, searching for the described vehicle. So 2 campus security officers noted that a car on campus belonging to Kohberger was very similar to one caught on camera the night of the homicides. Law enforcement had already alerted nearby agencies that they were searching for a white Hyundai Elantra between 2011 and 2013. Jenkins officers noted that Kohberger's car fit all of the criteria except for the year. It was a 2015. Thinking the car wasn't a perfect match, the officers did not pass the information on at that time, Jenkins told the Statesman.
Can I say something real quick in there?
Go for it.
So in between this time, if you guys recall from our last live, Jenkins was in the Amazon docuseries, but he was the former police chief of Pullman, and then he transferred over and took a position and was the police chief for the WSU Police Department. So by this point, this is where he's working. So I just want to make that kind of clear because it might sound a little weird, you know?
Yes, thank you. And Chief Fry moved too, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
heard that too.
Yeah. So it says after FBI identified Kohberger through his DNA, Jenkins helped Moscow police obtain a warrant to search Kohberger's university office and apartment in graduate student housing. They timed the search to about the same time as Kohberger's arrest in Pennsylvania. Jenkins said nothing taken into evidence at the apartment ended up being of value to the case, but Kohberger's home still left an impression on the police chief. Quote, "It was fairly sparse," Jenkins noted. "If someone were to look at it, they would have thought that maybe he wasn't planning to come back." While the search warrants were the last time Jenkins played a role in the case, Jenkins was still able to see the effect that the crime had on campus. "It was definitely shocking," Jenkins said. "We did work closely with our Dean of Students office and psychological services here on campus to provide support to students who were legitimately afraid. A number of students ended up finishing the semester at home." Jenkins said his force stepped up their patrols and communicated regularly with the student body in an attempt to make them feel protected. The university also secured $3 million through a federal technology improvement program grant to expand security cameras and door access controls on campus. "I hope and I think that these crimes are not going to define Moscow or this area," Jenkins said. "The way the community has come together and the support throughout the community, I'm hoping that's really what will be the lasting impact of what has happened." So it's interesting just hearing like these people speak out essentially for the first time.
Yeah, unfettered, the way that they can just say what it is. Okay, so I am seriously considering, and Allie suggested I do it on audio, but I need to have the paper book. I need to feel the book in my hand. I like the way that feels when you turn the pages. I'm really thinking about getting that book, and I'll tell you why. Because the parts that I've listened to, I'm not 100% on board with this incel theory, not in the way that it's been portrayed.
Yeah, we're not either.
I have a theory. I do.
Give it to us.
Okay. Have you guys seen the movie with Harry Connick Jr. and William McNamara and Sigourney Weaver called Copycat?
No.
You must watch it.
Okay.
Basically, Sigourney Weaver plays a forensic psychiatrist or psychologist. She studied and gave lectures on serial killers. She lectured about Gacy. She lectured about Bundy. She lectured about Son of Sam, right?
Is this Catherine Ramsland?
Be patient. I'm getting there. All right. So this guy played by Harry Connick Jr. becomes obsessed with her, and he gets her in a bathroom. She gets away. He goes to jail or prison. Well, then these murders, these copycat murders.
It's on Netflix, by the way.
Yes. Start happening in the order in which this professor gave her lectures. Okay. The lecture. The order in which she talked about the serial killers is the way that the copycat murders were happening. Dahmer was included. Okay. To me, Bryan Kohberger reminds me of that, wherein Catherine Ramsland would be the Sigourney Weaver person, and he is taking bits and pieces from different serial killers that he studied, and he put it into one thing. If you think about it, right, we have an off-campus house, right? Bundy, but not just Bundy, because who else targeted co-eds in college? Not just Bundy. Kemper did, and there's another one. From
Bundy.
Florida. The Gainesville Reaper.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then you have the weird like incel thing. Do I think that Maddie was targeted for her name so that it was a nod to Elliot Rodgers? Yeah, it's entirely possible. But I think that Bryan Kohberger hated women. Yes, but that doesn't make him an incel. See, what was missing in that book, or at least the part I heard, which is why I want to get it. What was missing for me as it pertained to Rodgers is this. Elliot Rogers had a sense of entitlement about him with
Oh
respect
yeah.
to women, and he talked about it all the time, how he was a good guy, how he had money, how these girls should like him, and what the F was wrong with him, and blah, 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 right? And I don't see that with Kohberger. Do I think Kohberger was awkward around girls? Absolutely. But I actually think that I do that's my current theory right now, that he wanted to be, he's not original on his own. He could never, he had to borrow from, from serial killers and other mass murderers. That's,
I think he gave him homage for sure.
that's what I think.
I think I 100% agree. And his mom too, because I remember me and Shay were just speaking about this. His mom wrote, what did she write on Bundy, Shay?
It was kind of like against like the death penalty and the crowd applauding that, like.
Oh yeah, there was a huge, I have so many
Yeah.
pictures. You could, I mean, there are of anybody. It's not like I have them because I was there. I was not really old enough to be there, but you know, I do remember that, you know, when Bundy was executed, people were cheering. They were, you know, they cheered for Gacy too. It wasn't just Bundy. Bundy's not the only one.
Yeah, she wrote, so it's titled Cheering the Hearsay. Perhaps one of the saddest commentaries on mankind was evident during the execution of Theodore Bundy. While no sane, compassionate individual would excuse the atrocities committed by this man, neither would any sane individual applaud the passing of his funeral. Here's his funeral hearse. Sorry, cheering the hearse. That's what I said. I didn't mean to say hearsay. So, what have we become? Is the taking of a human life acceptable when the state takes responsibility for it? Marianne Kohberger.
Well, and because we spoke about how the incel theory just, it never really resonated with me, but we found out the partner he had, she was into him and he essentially rejected her. And
Right.
so I think Bryan truly had the interest in the crimes.
Yes.
The actual unaliving itself.
Yes. And Jeremy is correct. There are a lot of similarities to the Chi Omega crimes. For example, there were survivors in that.
Yes.
Scenario.
There were
two
right?
of them. Exactly. Two of them. And those two women had to come to court and they had to be questioned by Bundy because Bundy represented himself. Yes, he had standby counsel, but for the most part, he's the one that conducted all of the cross-examination. So you re-victimize them again, or he tried to.
Re-victimizes right.
Right. And that is the thing, you know, I think that, I think Kohberger was waiting for Bethany and Dylan to have to get up there and testify. I don't believe that it was an accident or that he ran out of time. I think he always intended to leave some survivors. I think that he likely would have left Xana alone, but I think that Ethan was way too much of a threat.
See, but let me ask you, Bundy. Ethan, it doesn't appear Ethan ever got out of bed. It appears that he never got out of bed. He was still in bed when his life was taken. So how would he perceive Ethan as a threat?
Because at any moment, Ethan could have woken up and stopped him.
Right after
he was a physical threat.
Oh, you mean once he got to the room? Okay.
Yes. I don't think he counted on Ethan being there. I think that's one of those things. And this is what I believe. I believe that Bryan Kohberger very much intended to be a serial killer. This is where he started. And if you've done any studying at all about serial killers, their first victim, in this case victims, the scene is incredibly chaotic and incredibly messy. And they learn and evolve as they get bigger. And if you think about where he went to school, Kohberger, in Washington, that's Bundy's hunting ground.
Well, and he had the Kemper vibe of working alongside Ed Kemper aided the police in searching for himself. The same with Kohberger trying to, maybe we'll go get a coffee. He wants to join the police. So essentially, think about it this way. He was applying for that position and he fully intended to commit the murders. He had already bought the K-bar, okay?
Yep.
So he was probably going to help search for himself. And
absolutely. Well, he wanted to be law enforcement. So did Ed Kemper. Ed Kemper desperately wanted to be a cop.
Yeah. And he would get drinks out at the bar with them and talk to them about their investigation about him. I do not think the sheath was left on purpose. I'll ask the other girls. I don't think the sheath was left on purpose, nor do I think he returned the next morning to look for the sheath. What do you guys think?
I don't think the sheath was a signature. I think he did something to those bodies that was going to be a signature.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I just think the sheath was a oh shit moment. It didn't mean to.
I do think that he actually drove back to the scene, not for the sheath. I think he wanted to watch.
Yeah, I think he and Dylan saw one another. It was loud, especially when you think it wasn't intended it for 4 victims. I think he full on expected the police, yet no vandal alerts, nothing. And curiosity got the best of him and he took a quick drive-by.
I think so too. The sheath was a mistake.
Yeah.
I think it was on an accident.
If they did not get that sheath, if he did not leave the sheath behind, I think it eventually probably would have led to him. But I do not think that they would have had a conviction based on what we know so far. I think without that DNA and sheath, I don't know if they would have gotten a conviction.
Yeah, I'm not sure. See, so this is the thing I think about Kohberger. You cannot be a serial killer if you don't get caught. Okay, that's part of it for him. And I think that he very much wants to be studied, and he doesn't just want to be studied by anyone. I think he very, very much wants to be studied by Catherine Ramslat. That's what I think. And the only way that you can be studied is if you are caught. I just think that he thought he would have some more victims under his belt before he got caught.
Why do you think he took the plea?
Because I think it gave him a measure. I think he wants the control. And at the end of the day, I think he took the plea because everything goes with him. Even if we had a trial, okay, even if they had made him testify about what he did, there will always be things that occurred during the murders that only Bryan Kohberger knows and he will never talk about. It's kind of the same way that Bundy will never, ever, has never talked about his necrophilia. He has denied it. He will not address it at all. Also, there are things that Dahmer did to his victims that he won't talk about at all. It's a way of keeping it just for them. It's their way of coveting and holding it, but it's also a measure of control over all of it. And those things will not come out. And if people want to know those things, what will they have to do? Study him. They'll have to ask him. And at the end of the day, the prison has measure over his visitation. But before they can even decide if Bryan can get visitors, Bryan has to say that he will want so-and-so to be on a visitor list.
Yeah, he has control over the list. He definitely does. And thank you so much, Linda. That's very kind of you. There were a few people who they returned back. And so I agree. I think it was, I never aligned with the incel theory, but it was
just one sec.
Studied. Yeah.
Give me just 1 sec, Melissa. Sorry.
I agree, Melissa. I don't think it's an incel thing, but I mean, I think that there's some interesting stuff with the Papa Roger, Elliot Roger thing connection, but
yeah, that was interesting. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on it completely with him.
What
I'm,
him being Papa Roger?
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just
me
not
neither.
completely sold.
No, I'm not, especially now, even more so that Steve's saying we knew it was a sheep before you guys even came out and announced it. It just goes to show, one, people knew and we're talking about it, but even people made educated guesses based on the sharp fixed blade knife, you know, like it was a logical, educated guess. But this is, Shay had found just this clip from the original Ashley Banfield Coroner Kathy Mabbitt interview. So I'll play this quickly. But again, this is what fueled a lot of the back and forth. Is we had the original presser where we were not given accurate information, which they are allowed to lie. They're able to throw us off because they're also speaking to the killer. But Kathy also contributed to just the speculation and rumor mill going, because she said all 4 victims were likely in their bed asleep. And then the PCA comes out. We find out Xana was awake, and it was a mess. But here it is.
It was late at night or early in the morning. So it seems likely that maybe they were sleeping.
Were they found in separate areas of the house?
That hasn't been disclosed yet.
Can you tell me, when you say that they might have been sleeping, were they found in beds?
Yes.
And so,
but they all weren't.
Can you tell me if there were multiple stab wounds per victim, or were these sort of, individual lethal stab wounds that may have been less in number but more in lethality?
There were multiple stab wounds. Yes, on them. So, and
were there? Go ahead.
And most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Yes.
Can you describe what that one might have been?
But they were to the fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
Were there, and I only ask this because it sometimes determines what kind of a crime this was, a crime of passion, a random crime, a fight, a struggle. Was there, were any of them slashed? Were any of their necks cut? Or were these all puncture wounds?
Well, it was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. And they were definitely stabbings. And it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
And so, yeah, you're right, Jones. And she had come out essentially before we knew anything. And I don't know if you guys remember this. I have this bookmark. This was gone. Like it was taken down. But I remember when this came out. Where is it? This one. This article was published, and it was Idaho victim Xana had fought back. Wow, why are there so many pop-ups? Wow, so many pop-ups. So she had fought back against alleged killer Bryan Kohberger. This was February 4th, 2023. And it said slain University of Idaho student Xana had fought back against alleged killer Bryan Kohberger, suffering noticeable defensive wounds on her hands. Quote, Xana Kernodle put up a fierce fight when the attacker set upon her, repeatedly grabbing the attacker's knife, so much so that the sustained deep cuts to her fingers and that her fingers were nearly severed. Sources close to the investigation told News Nation Thursday. This article, I remember it blew up when this article came about. And it said the sources said that Kernodle was the last of the 4 students to be killed at an off-campus home in Moscow. So childhood best friends Kaylee and Maddie, who were sleeping in the same bed, were killed first, the insider says. Hold on, it froze.
And
Yeah,
they're
because
saying
of all
the
those
same.
pop-ups. Sorry,
Yeah.
Shay.
Oh, you're okay. I was say they're saying the same thing in that new book too about her hands, Melissa.
Yeah. Well, it said more, and this is what the heck? Hold on.
Refresh.
Here we go. So the noise may have alerted Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan, who were on the second floor, to the intruder. It appeared Ethan had stepped, and this is what is not accurate as far as I'm understanding. It appeared Ethan had stepped partly into the hallway where the second floor attack may have begun. And that would be more like Xana, because Xana was more in the, like, she was in her room, but on the floor of the doorway.
Yes, in front of the door.
Mm-hmm. And it said Ethan had suffered a slash to the neck and was killed in the doorway of Kernodle's room, the sources said. So that was not accurate. First of all, look how they were all so beautiful, but like every photo of them gorgeous.
And then you see this monster with the shark eyes.
Yep, the just hollow nothing.
Yep, he's the one. Him, Letitia, Lori Vallow, the literal embodiments of the nothing.
Black eyes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that's when Kohberger allegedly set his sights on Kernodle, who fought to the bitter end. The new details match statements that Father Jeffrey Kernodle made shortly after the slayings. Quote, bruises, torn by the knife. She's a tough kid. Whatever she wanted to do, she could do it, he said in November. 2 other roommates were in the house, but were not targeted in the brutal attack. One of the women, Dylan Mortensen, told investigators she came face to face with a man with bushy eyebrows, a distinctive attribute that helped investigators nail him down before he walked out the door. The investigator sources divulged the exclusive details despite a court-mandated gag order preventing anyone involved in the case from speaking to the media or the public. A judge issued the order in January to protect Kohberger's right to a fair trial in the face of a nationally covered and sensationalized story. Goncalves' family, who have been outspoken since their daughter's murder, filed an appeal Friday on the order, arguing that it is facially overbroad and vague. The family argued that they shouldn't be restricted by the order because they are not parties in the case against Kohberger. So then it says, on Friday, 3 U of I students said they frequently saw Kohberger milling about the Moscow campus. They said he was a creepy loner who had a habit of staring. He wouldn't look away if you caught him staring, like he wanted you to notice that he was looking at you, one student said. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't say anything, just stared. But that wasn't even, there was the other one. Where am I? There was the other article that was taken down, and that was the one that described, where am I? Sorry, I have so many windows open. I don't know where's my StreamYard? Okay. Like I just totally got lost.
Where am I?
It was so weird. It was an inception of tabs, but there was the other article that detailed slashes and that they pulled down. I think that was a Fox one, right, Shay? It was a Fox article. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
I think I do.
It talked about the like organs and stuff, like very graphic.
Oh, like the 4chan post?
No. The article.
Yeah, but were they reporting based off the 4chan post?
I don't know if they were reporting based off the 4chan.
Now you got me going down the rabbit hole.
It was taken down the same day. We did a stream on it.
Oh.
No, not slashes down Ethan's legs. That came from Annie Elise, a source close, her friend whose husband worked. I don't remember what his role was, but she had reported that very early on. And now that's something that people are speculating over again because Steve had made a comment more recently saying he didn't have to do that to Ethan. And that's very, carved.
Carved is very different than slashed.
It is.
Well, and it's weird because like in the new book, apparently, I think according to Stacey Chapin, they were saying that, it was in the buttocks.
Really? Say that one more time.
He was stabbed in his buttocks, not the hamstrings. Yeah.
She said that?
That's what was in the book. I don't know if Angel's still in chat, but I listened to the audio thing, and I think Daniel was reading about it too.
I hadn't even heard that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, and in Stacey's defense.
Yeah, so Angel says that's what the new book says, yeah.
I believe that she said that, yes. But I also remember Stacy being very specific and not wanting to know a lot of details.
Well, apparently this is information again coming from Kathy Babbitt. No, and I mean,
Look, I can't with her.
Right.
But that's the article I'm talking about. It's when Kathy spoke to Kaylee's sister and gave the details. You don't remember what I'm talking? I have it somewhere. And it was the article that was posted about Kaylee. I don't want to say, it was graphic details about.
I'm going to get it.
The liver being, quote, slashed. Remember?
Yeah, I'm going to find it. Hold on.
Jones is asking to trust the book or not to trust the book. I'm going to read it and I'll tell you.
I think two things can be true at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think it's sensationalized and he's a storyteller. We know that. Mm-hmm. But there could be truths it's based on, right? Truths it's based on.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a dramatized accounting. It's definitely a story. It reads like a story. But I do think that it's like reading a Lifetime movie. That's what it reminded me.
Yeah.
Because what I don't understand is there was a lot of talk, like I said, about this, about Bryan Kohberger potentially being an incel. But no, that's where it's like it's just a statement. And then it goes on to say, well, he had conversations with some of the other, like one of the students that went through the criminology program went with him at WSU, and what he said about him, but about him not liking women, and having even a misogynistic view on a woman's role. Like, for example, one of the things that Patterson says, I think he calls him Ben, said about him. To be fair, I was cleaning the bathroom. I was scrubbing the bathtub when this was being read. So some of this is a little fuzzy. But he said something to the effect of, I don't know why any of these women are here. Any of these girls are here. They don't belong, as if they should not, as if women belong in the kitchen making sandwiches. It would be pointless. But that doesn't fit with the way that the way he was with the female professors, particularly Catherine Ramsat. That doesn't fit. So I don't understand. I wish that Patterson would have connected the dots more. Why do you think he is an incel? Simply being a potential virgin, simply not getting, or even not being a virgin, but not getting laid on a regular basis or whatever, or at all, right? Doesn't make one an incel.
Right.
There's other criteria. Even hating women doesn't make you an incel. It's just, there's like a disconnect there, and it doesn't, to me, I would think when Elliot Rodgers did what he did, and he wrote his manifesto, he was very clear about why he did it, why he chose who he chose, but he left no survivors. You know what I mean? I don't remember now if anybody survived, but it wasn't intentionally that they survived. Do you know what I'm saying? Where Kohberger did not attack two of the people in that house. That was intentional. And I don't think that there's a cross paths with Maddie. I don't know. There's a gut feeling, and once more stuff comes out, maybe I'll be better able to articulate why I feel the way I feel about what Kohberger did, and who he was giving a nod or an homage to when he did the things, because I need a little bit more information. But there's something that I just don't, I think he had a bigger plan, not for that night. I'm talking about down the road.
Yeah, 100%. He planned this. What we do know is just from when he ordered the knife and the sheath and the sharpener, he planned it. I think even down to the move, I think it was all about this. Always about this.
Yes. And the other thing is, and like Allie says, Elliot had an angry obsession with a girl named Maddie, and that is true. And Bundy, one of the reason, Bundy also had a type, and it was a brunette, hair parted down the middle, and that is because that happened due to the fact that his first girlfriend in college that broke up with him. And it always pissed him off because, yes, he did feel like he was not good enough for her, but he never told anybody that. And he damn sure didn't tell her that. And he was angry, livid at her. Like, how dare you, you know? And those, and all of the women that he subsequently murdered were surrogates for her. It's like he was killing her over and over and over and over again. Some of them obviously didn't. Not all of his victims looked like that. I mean, you know, but also Bundy used ruses to get, you know, he played helpless. And I don't know, because Bryan had an opportunity where a girl sought his help in installing those cameras and he didn't attack her. So I think, I don't know, just there's something about that whole movie, Copycat, Catherine Ramsland, the whole situation that is just like, I don't know why it's giving me a vibe, but it's giving me a vibe. And I'm going to leave it there because now I sound like a lunatic.
No, not at all. It's just, it's so interesting, and we're not, I think incel is just way too easy. And I feel like it's kind of like the word narcissist. It became popular. All of a sudden, everyone throws around, you're a narcissist. And when it's not, you're not an actual true narcissist. Right. I think incel became popular. I think Elliot Rodgers absolutely falls in that category. Not Kohberger. That's way too surface level. It goes much deeper, in my opinion, with Kohberger.
So the way that it was described was like big open wound gouges were the way that Kathy had described it to her sister. But also I found like this other statement, which, you know, I've heard her say it, but because people just don't believe, you know, sometimes there was blood. She also had an interview Kathy did with CNN, and she commented on there was lots of blood on the walls. So a lot of cast off.
Which you would expect, yeah.
Right, just to point out. So like those are just like a couple things. But yeah, I remember her saying like she made just multiple comments about being like a pretty large knife, this or that. But I really think it would be helpful. And I don't know if ever we would get like a redacted version of the medical examiner's like reports and findings. I think that would definitely help with some of the speculation.
We saw some what appeared possibly to be cast off ATS, but in the kitchen, on the cabinets. And I'm not saying that that's what it was, but we saw, and I'm sure I can find those photos, what appeared to be possibly. And then in the box, there was a shoe that appeared to have something on it, and it was sitting on the kitchen table. But other than that, like we never really get to see. And then the outside of the house, obviously. Yeah, Jones in. I don't know. But what we were saying before the live started is Moscow PD is going to be, instead of being overwhelmed by a bunch of FOIA requests, and this is specifically Moscow PD, the same way that they used to post and have the debunking of the rumors and here's updated information, which we really appreciated early on in the investigation, they will be just dropping on its own site the record, like all of the records that they have. And I expect that as soon as I kind of expect that once sentencing hits, them to just all of a sudden drop so that they're not overwhelmed with their staff, because everyone will be requesting these records. And I think that was a really smart idea.
I agree. I do think that's a smart idea to have a dedicated this way. I mean, they're not going to be able to, like, we're going to get them. Their requests are going to happen. People are going to get them. Just put it all out, you know, and on one site like that would be much easier.
Now, are you going to be covering the hearing for Stearns on Monday?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
I don't know what all these.
And I'm going to cover Kohberger's sentencing hearing on the 23rd as well.
Awesome.
So, y'all come
Oh,
out.
good deal.
Yeah, you got a place to go. Okay, come to the ward.
This is did you change it to just the ward now, right?
No, so I have 2 channels. Okay.
Oh.
The ward case studies is the channel that I very first started. And I've been like not paying attention to the second channel. And I was going to do like true crime and reality TV on the second channel. But the fact of the matter is I'm far more obsessed with true crime than I ever I mean, I love reality TV, but reality TV is like my escape. So I changed it, and I'm going to take all of the videos that I have made and rework them now that I know how to actually edit things so that the volume of the music doesn't overpower the voice. And I'm starting with the West Memphis story. I'm going to redo that whole entire series. And the way that I decided to do it, you guys, is that instead of just talking about what was known in 1993, I'm going to talk about what was known in 1993, what came out after, in the years after, all in one. So I'm starting with the first episode, which will be Lost, which talks about the May 5th, the day that the boys went missing, that whole timeline, all the things that the documentaries didn't show you. And the reason they didn't show them is because the documentary filmmakers, bless them, they did a great job, but they got involved after, and they were there to cover the trials, not the investigation. Right. So, and then there will be little sections, like, for example, the Bojangles man. I'm going to take all the stuff that I know about the Bojangles man and the investigation into the Bojangles man, and I'm going to put it on Patreon. I have one tier, it's $5. And so it will go, it'll all go along. So there you go.
I'm so excited because I went back down the West Memphis. It was like over a year ago now. I remember I was speaking to you about it, and I was like, who do you think, and you're like, come to me at the end. And I never got back to you. So I still don't know really what your full theory is. But that's a very interesting case for numerous different reasons, but also the court process and what happened, and it's not every day you see that.
No, it's not. But the thing is, like, my theory, having gone back and revisiting it in a different way than I did the first time, sometimes my theory has not changed. Mm-hmm. It's just evolved a little bit. But I'm trying to, I promise I will get there. I just am very, I don't want to point the finger at somebody without like evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to be careful of that. And now, if you'd asked me back in 2003, 2005, I would have been like, oh, I think it's and here's what happened. But I've grown up since then, so like, I don't want to be like that. And
especially being on the tubes and you seeing how sideways it goes, it makes you want to do better.
And exactly. Like, I feel like, even if it doesn't matter how many people watch the video, whether it's one person or a million people. Like, I don't think a million people are ever going to watch it. Please don't clip this and be like, listen to old Bendy over there. I'm just making a point. It doesn't matter how many people are listening to the information. At the end of the day, the reason I'm putting this out truthfully is because I want to honor Michael, Chris, and Steve. Stevie, I want people to understand what happened and what didn't happen. And I'm not like pulling it out of my butt or, going, I have the documents. So I'm using the documents. I will take you through the whole investigation, all the way through the trials, all of it, everything.
That's going to be awesome. Because it's just a crazy, very heartbreaking, but very crazy case that I feel like didn't get as much attention as, like, even out of all the older cases that people go through, we don't really hear about the West Memphis a lot.
No, you don't. And there's, oh, thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. They're doing the MVAC DNA testing. Now, I read an article at the end of 2024 that said early or beginning of 2025. Okay, it's July.
Here we are.
We are mid through July. I believe early 2025. That ship has sailed. I'm going to need what the results is. I have been patiently, y'all, I check every single day. I also check every single day for an update on Todd Mullis's hearing. Is the judge going to allow him a new trial? And I check that every single day. But for now, I shall be covering Stephen Stern's hearing and whatever happens there, and I will stream live both Stearns and Kohberger. So if you need a place to come and chill, you can say whatever you want. I don't keep the live chat up just so people can say whatever they want, and especially for things like this. When cases like this happen and there's a sentencing or a plea or whatever, I think people should be free to express themselves in the chat without fear. So I don't upload the live chat after. So you can say whatever happens on the ward stays at the ward. There you go.
Hell yeah. Shay, you're good. She found the article.
She did. Look at her.
Clips of the article, like screenshots of the article. And I don't want to read it out because it's very sensitive, but again, it's talking about the wounds, and with a weapon, a bleed so big, it really isn't stabs.
Wow.
It's more open,
like gouges.
Yes. Big open gouges is exactly how it's referenced. And that the injuries do not match between Maddie and Kaylee at that time, which now that we have a little bit more information and Steve explaining, okay, that makes sense, but yeah, it references injuries even to the liver and lungs. That's exactly what I remember. Thank you, Shay. Yeah.
Hey, Shay, since you're a local gal, we're both local gals. Do you remember the murders that happened at the Pear Tree Plum Tree Apartments back in end of 95, beginning of 96?
Maybe. Can you give me more info?
Christine Vu was the first victim. She was a teacher. Do you know? This is why I think I was made for true crime. I was downstairs. I lived in the apartment downstairs and across the hall from Christine Vu. And the other girl, who I cannot remember what her name is, I can see her in my mind's eye, I just do not remember her name. She lived across the parking lot and upstairs, and he ended up being, remember, he was the UTA campus rapist. Then he became the bathtub killer.
That's
he left
wasn't it the bathtub killer?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
We should talk about that. I put my number in the back chat for you too, Melissa.
Yes.
Yeah, I screenshotted it.
Did you? Please go update the truck stops. I've changed numbers since the last time I gave it out. So the truck stops are all updated with it.
Well, thank you, Bendy. Thank you, Shay. Allie, even I know how I saw in your comments. She's like, you don't know how hard I tried.
She did. I remember this happened to us when we did the thing over on my channel.
Mm-hmm. I feel bad.
Bless it. Because I wanted all of us to be able to talk.
I know. We'll just have to do another one. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
But both of their links are in the description. I really appreciate you guys coming on. And it's a crazy one. I feel like it's not what we expected. And now the same thing with CERN. So I'm very curious what's going to happen Monday. If the judge would even accept a plea deal.
I mean, he doesn't have to. The judge never has to accept the plea deal.
I love watching like the daily court. And a lot of times, they'll offer a plea, and then they come up with the defendant will come up with their lawyer, and they're not willing to fully admit their guilt, and then it's like, no, I'm rejecting the plea, no, you can't have it. Or you could fully admit and the statements could be used, and then you could get sentenced. Like, that's outside of the plea agreement. It's crazy.
So Harlot, Stearns was scheduled for September 22nd, 2025. Okay. I will tell you that when you go and look at the docket, okay, because when you look at the docket, there's 3 cases. 2 of them are open, 1 of them is closed. So the first case is for the capital murder, and the third case is for the CSAM S abuse, okay? On both of the dockets, there is an add-on event hearing on July 21st at 1:30 p.m. It's on both the dockets. So I don't, and the articles that Melissa and I were reading before we went live, it's not clear whether it's just for the CSAM abuse or if it's for the murder as well. So we'll have to wait and see until maybe on Monday. For sure Monday we'll freaking know. Okay, at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, we'll definitely know that.
Oh, thank you, Shay. You're the best.
No
Yeah. Another Friday plea and then Monday court. It's just crazy.
I know, crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I love you ladies, but I'm gonna have to jump down because I promised hubby I'd watch a movie with him, and he's about to like pass out from his gummy if I don't get in
watch
there.
Copycat. Like
Shay out here, Netflix and chill.
I don't know what we're gonna watch, but I'm up for it.
I'm fixing to watch a Copycat too. I didn't know it was on the Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I'm literally gonna go watch it, and I'll report back and let you guys know.
Yes, and you guys all go at some point watch it, and then let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to read the book too. But anyway, thank you for having me, MJ.
Thank you, ladies.
It was good. Thank you, Shay. It was good to see you guys. I'm gonna go because I'll be saying bye forever, and MJ needs to end the live. So bye, you guys. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. I have nothing special to say. I gotta pee, so I'm gonna just hop off regularly too. So I love you guys. Thank you so much. I will see you guys tomorrow. We will be live on Patreon this weekend. I know we got updates to do also with Wade and moving out of Union. And then we need to do Casey with Allie. And so I will see you guys this weekend. Thank you all for hanging out. Hit the thumbs up on your way out, and I will see you all soon.